The story of Skeleton Warrior begins with a background in one tense night on a mountain on the southern edge of Xi'an, Shanxi province. There is a man named Cheo Wubek, demonic cult's young cult leader, surrounded by several people who are members of the vicious blood squad who want to kill him. Cheo Wubek did not expect that he would end up being betrayed by those closest to him, who had spent a long time with him. One of the squad members said that they did this because they felt that the demonic cult needed a change, and one of the ways to make that happen was to kill him. Cheo Wubek, who heard that, couldn't help but laugh and say that their only goal was to kill him, and that the Pledge of Allegiance they had made was just a bunch of nonsense. Annoyed by Cheo Wubek's words, the squad member ignored his words and then swung her sword ready to kill Cheo Wubek. Seeing the squad member's action, in his mind, Cheo Wubek wondered if that place would be the place where he would die. Not wanting to end up in vain as a son of the leader of demonic cult, he would show them all how apples don't fall far from the tree. Instantly, a purple aura enveloped Cheo Wubek's body, and by brandishing his sword, he was ready to fight with all of them. But who would have thought? Before the fight happened, suddenly, a man fell right on top of his head and fell on Cheo Wubek, breaking his collarbone. As a result of the incident, Cheo Wubek eventually lost consciousness, while the man who was only wearing pants was moaning in pain on his butt and was surprised when he found out that he was in a place he didn't know at all. The man's name is Kim Sojun. After 4 years of study at the teacher's college, 2 years of compulsory military training, and 2 years of preparation for the teacher certification exam, at the age of 28, he finally passed the exam. He didn't intend to study education at all, but he did it all because he wanted to earn a stable and decent income. But not as he imagined. The longer the house price inflation beat the increase in wages. Therefore, all he could do was to multiply the money hundreds of thousands of times. That is, by playing stocks and crypto. One day, bad luck happened to Kim Sojun, where he lost 140,358,383 At that time, along with a female teacher and his students, they were all on a field trip to the royal tomb. The female teacher seemed to have difficulty organizing the students and asked Kim Sojun to help her. But she was surprised when she saw Kim Sojun's creepy look, where he was very shocked by the loss he got. Wherever he was, Kim Sojun did not let go of his cell phone at all, and just stared at it with annoyance. While going to the toilet, he accidentally saw one of his students enter a room that was marked with a no-entry sign. Feeling lazy, he inevitably followed the boy and entered the room. When inside, he was very surprised to see the pillars that had cracked, and also quite a lot of cobwebs. He did not expect that there would be such a room in the royal tomb, which is known to be always kept clean. Then he saw his student go to another room, and immediately chased him and caught him. The child named Yu Deokwa, from Class 2B, who is known as a quiet student. Surprisingly, Yu Deokwa told Kim Sojun to get out of that place immediately, and said if he was there, then he would fall into a very terrible curse. Hearing those words, Kim Sojun obviously didn't believe it and asked to go with him. But suddenly his words stopped after seeing something shining brightly. Kim Sojun was very surprised when he saw so many gold coins in front of him. He slowly approached the coins, and bit one of them to check the authenticity of the coin, which turned out to be pure gold. Unlike Kim Sojun, Yu Deokwa was seen taking one of the coins and observing it. Just as he predicted, inside the coins there were unpleasant souls living there. Then his attention was distracted by the sound of Kim Sojun laughing very loudly like he was planning something. Having suffered a considerable loss, Kim Sojun was unable to think clearly and pocketed one of the coins into his pants pocket. Not wanting to miss this amazing opportunity, he opened his jacket as a place for the coins. Seeing his teacher's behavior, Yu Deokwa tried to warn him not to do that because it could make him cursed. With a terrible look, Kim Sojun seemed to underestimate his student's words and said that right now his life was like hell, where this world was a hell without money. Just as he finished his words, the ground he was on suddenly shattered and made him fall in. While falling, Kim Sojun heard a strange whispering voice that said the person who disturbed the king's rest deserved to be cursed, and he would step through the world, face trials, and live with the dead for the rest of his life. Kim Sojun shouted very loudly, and soon a tab appeared that said if he had been resurrected as a player and obtained the necromancer character, and he had the skeleton warrior skill. Not only that, on the tab there is a warning if the first skeleton underling can only be revived as a skeleton once he personally kills the target. After that, Kim Sojun fell and hit someone who was none other than Cheo Wubek. He then felt an oddity where he thought that his pants were very loose,
and his hands became smaller, which made him look younger. After checking his condition, he realized that there were already several people staring at him with strange looks. When he looked to the side, he was surprised to find a dead person with a broken neck due to his actions. Kim Sojun's face instantly became panicked, and sweat was pouring down his face as he realized that he had killed someone. Suddenly a tab appeared and told Kim Sojun that he had met the requirements, and since he personally killed that person, he could summon him as a skeleton underling. Knowing that, Kim Sojun's face turned even paler, and from behind him a sword almost hit him. Having pretty good reflexes, Kim Sojun managed to avoid the sword slash from one of the vicious Blood Squad members several times. They said that Kim Sojun was a witness, and they wouldn't let him live. At that time, Kim Sojun thought that they were angry because Kim Sojun had killed their colleague. Therefore, he tried to explain everything to them if it was just an accident and he just fell from the sky. Unfortunately, his words did not work, and he was eventually chased by the vicious Blood Squad who shouted at him to die immediately. But while running, he tripped over his own feet and then fell to the ground. Right at that moment, his right arm was stabbed by a squad member's sword, causing him to cry out in pain. The squad member said that it was a reward for killing their replacement young cult leader, and he would send him away at least painlessly. Kim Sojun looked in great pain as the sword pierced deeper and deeper into his arm and began to wonder if he would die a miserable death. He then lamented his fate and recalled his previous achievements. In his heart, he wondered if he would just die on that place, and soon a tab appeared in front of him telling him if he could summon the first skeleton warrior and if he would summon him. With tears in his eyes, Kim Sojun thought that normally with his personality, he would first worry about his belongings, but in a moment of desperation, worry is a luxury. With a loud shout, Kim Sojun summoned the first skeleton warrior, at which time a very bright light appeared on his body and Chio Wubek appeared. It is known that the first summon can use a fraction of his previous life ability, and the summon will share a fraction of his ability with the summoner. When Chio Wubek appeared, the squad members looked very frightened, and did not think that he could come back to life considering his neck was completely destroyed. Then, the skin on Chio Wubek's face gradually peeled off until finally leaving only his skull. The squad members were terrified by what they saw, and one of the squad members ran towards Chio Wubek to attack him with a sword. One of the other squad members shouted to stop him, but it was too late. With a single slash of his sword, Chio Wubek managed to kill the squad member. Then in front of Kim Sojun appeared another tab that told him that he could give orders to his skeleton warriors. With a terrifying smile, he then stood up and gave orders to his skeleton warrior to kill all the squad members. The setting switches when Kim Sojun is still in elementary school. In class, he introduces himself to his friends and has dreams of becoming a rich man. The dream he had made since he was a child. To realize it, he worked tirelessly, and although it was different from what he had in mind, in the end when his dream was about to come true, a bright purple light enveloped the skeleton warrior's body. Chio Wubek, who had now become Kim Sojun's skeleton warrior, shouted loudly with flaming eyes holding a sword and then ran towards the members of the vicious Blood Squad, killing them all brutally. One of the squad members told them not to panic and asked them to immediately prepare to attack. She also said that even if Chio Wubek had become a skeleton, he was still the young cult leader, and asked them all to focus on cutting off his limbs so that he could not move, because there's no way a mere skeleton can have inner energy. His sword technique just now was just a random attack with no movement, so he asked them all not to be afraid and keep attacking. Internal energy, sword techniques, stances. For Kim Sojun, it would be better if he did not know them all. He hated to admit it, but there was no doubt about it, and he realized that he had now fallen in the world of martial arts. On the other hand, the skeleton warrior was seen laughing, and the bodies of the squad members were seen trembling with the field in their hands. One of the squad members immediately ran towards the skeleton warrior, intending to cut off his head, but the attack was easily managed by the skeleton warrior. Many times the squad member attacked. Many times the skeleton soldier managed to parry their attacks. When the squad member was caught off guard, the skeleton warrior immediately stabbed her right in the heart with his sword. The skeleton warrior then smiled with satisfaction at this, and turned his gaze to the remaining squad members. The other squad members had no other choice, and simultaneously attacked the skeleton warrior, but the skeleton warrior easily defeated them. But it turned out that there were still some squad members left who suddenly attacked him and stabbed him in the back. The skeleton warrior turned his head towards him and then mercilessly attacked the squad member very sadistically. Likewise, the fate of the other squad members who tried to attack him, they all died in a very gruesome way.
Seeing the action carried out by his skeleton warriors, Kim Sojun showed a face full of fear, as it was the first massacre he had witnessed in his life. He then felt guilty for ordering the skeleton warriors to kill them all. Even so, he had no other choice, because if he didn't do it, then he would die at their hands. His reverie was soon interrupted when suddenly his sword-pierced arm felt very painful.
Limping, he tried to get away because there might still be enemies left behind. When he was about to leave the place, he saw his jacket containing gold coins, not far from where he was. Without further ado, he immediately took it back and left there immediately, leaving behind the members of the vicious blood squad who were already lying lifeless. Then switching to the Grand Myriad Mountains, the demonic cult's Kingseeker Pavilion saw an old man knowing that the Bloodwolf squad had been slaughtered, and in front of him there was a person kneeling in front of him. The man laughed loudly with a very horrible face while saying it was all very interesting. He also sent the person before him to go to the central mainland, and with a smile, the person accepted the order. At the East Lake Inn, 2 men were sitting there drinking. One of them asked if anything had happened because he looked very happy. With a happy smile, the man replied that today he just wanted to live life more pleasantly. The man's friend didn't expect to hear that from someone who always said his life was boring. The man replied with a laugh, and then asked if he had heard a rumor, where lately a new divine star had appeared. His friend replied that he was talking about the little moonstorm sword Yonjagang. The man shook his head and said that the little moonstorm sword Yonjagang was someone from the past. Then, right at that moment, the door of the inn was opened by someone who immediately entered the inn. The man continued to say the person he was referring to was King. King is a kind of nickname in the martial arts world, and is mainly named after the weapon, appearance, or martial arts used by the owner of the name. Hence, there was never a single case of someone among the newcomer murim carrying the alias King. The man smilingly asked if he wanted to see him too, even though the rumors hadn't spread yet, but he was still the new star of a king's murim. At the same time, a man was seen coming down the inn stairs, and everyone's eyes were on him. The man then walked up to the innkeeper and asked to give him a bell. He then rang the bell very loudly, and everyone in the inn cheered, because when the person rang the bell, then all the food would be free. The Golden King would pay for everything for them. That's what the person is called, which the Golden King turns out to be none other than Kim Sojun. Kim Sojun used to be just an ordinary high school teacher. Now he has become someone whose name is embraced by everyone to the point of calling him the Golden King. It was the 3rd week Kim Sojun came to the village. As he expected, the place was no other than the world of martial arts. Even so, now he didn't have to worry because he currently had gold coins that he could use all for the rest of his life. According to him, if he had gold, everything in this world would be easy. Then shortly while he was enjoying his drink, there was a group of men who poured water into his face to make everyone who was there very shocked. It was known that the men were a group of festive scholar bandits who tried to force Kim Sojun to hand over everything he had if he didn't want to die by their hands. Kim Sojun just laughed, making the bandit so annoyed that he took out his sword and pointed it right at Kim Sojun. Seeing the situation getting tense there, someone tried to intervene and asked the bandit to leave. But the bandit did not accept the behavior he got, so he pushed the person until he fell to the floor. Kim Sojun, who witnessed it all, then looked down on the bandit, making him even angrier. Suddenly there was a gurgling sound coming from the roof, and then a skeleton warrior appeared right behind the bandit's body. The bandit was shocked, and the skeleton warrior just laughed horribly at the expression shown by the bandit. Kim Sojun then tapped the skeleton warrior on the shoulder and asked him to attack the bandits who were there without killing them. After receiving the order, the skeleton warrior immediately shot towards the bandits. Meanwhile, Kim Sojun was seen still enjoying his drink, and then left with great satisfaction at the sound of the bandit's pain. Meanwhile, outside the inn, a beautiful woman with long hair and a sword was observing the inn. The woman was Dan Sik-young, the eldest daughter of the Gansis clan. She then entered the inn and was surprised that many people were lying unconscious. The waiter who was there welcomed her, and then apologized for the chaotic situation that occurred. Sighing, Dan Sik-young asked the maid to immediately prepare a room for her, but suddenly the maid was surprised when she saw the pattern of the hanger around Dan Sik-young's waist. Because of the look given by the maid, Dan Sik-young asked her about it. The waiter frantically apologized to her, and told her that she was familiar with the pattern because one of their guests also wore the same pattern as Dan Sik-young. On the other hand, Kim Sojun was seen patting the skeleton warrior's shoulder because he felt very happy after he managed to teach a lesson to the bandits who disturbed him. It can be seen that the robe used by the skeleton warrior has the same pattern as the hanger used by Dan Sik-young. Kim Sojun was still busy in his own mind, where he felt that being there was not a curse like what was said. He thought everything that happened was very cool. While saying those words, a table appeared in front of him, telling him that the words it once heard, and it said that Kim Sojun was not a resident of Murim. Kim Sojun, who saw that, was very surprised, and the table in front of him also showed other words where it was said that uninvited guests should return to their world safely. Therefore, Kim Sojun had an experimental project quest, which was to start a repatriation project. Then in front of him appeared the stage 1 Round 1 Repatriation Project tab, entering the Venerable Martial Academy, and there was a choice whether Kim Sojun wanted to accept the quest or not. Meanwhile, Dan Sik-young, who heard the maid's words about the hanger pattern, was surprised because the pattern was actually a badge for students who were accepted at the Venerable Martial Academy, and every student who was accepted there had to wear the badge. Hearing Venerable Martial Academy, the maid was amazed because she knew it was the biggest and most famous school in Murim. Venerable Martial Academy is an institution that every clan dreams of sending their best young people to study, or it can be said that it is the best educational institution in Murim. Knowing that another student had been accepted into the academy, Dan Sik-young planned to take him to the academy together tomorrow morning, although she did not know which clan he belonged to, but seeing the bandits lying unconscious on the floor made her think that he must be a good person. On the other hand, Kim Sojun, who got a new quest, finally rejected the quest because he thought it was very troublesome, especially now that he has a lot of gold coins so he can eat and play around for the rest of his life. When he was about to sleep, the quest notification reappeared and suddenly disappeared, replaced by a notification about the penalty for rejecting the given quest. Therefore, Kim Sojun would receive punishment. A tab appeared telling him that the death curse penalty had been activated. Kim Sojun was surprised, and suddenly he felt a very intense headache, and then he also felt his hand become painful. When he looked at his hand, he was surprised because little by little the skin of his hand peeled off until leaving only the bones of his hand. As that happened, Kim Sojun began to recall how he ended up in that world. He then screamed very loudly because of the strange voice he heard, where the voice kept saying that the person who disturbed the king's rest deserved to be cursed. Then suddenly, the left side of his face looked like it was melting until it made him fall down limply because he felt pain. Slowly, he then tried to get closer to the mirror nearby, and when he saw his face in the mirror, he was very surprised because part of his body was now only bones. With what happened to him, Kim Sojun became the first human to turn into a skeleton, and from the direction of his bedroom door, a laughing skeleton warrior could be seen. Seeing his dire situation, Kim Sojun panicked, and suddenly the tab quest reappeared in front of him. Kim Sojun angrily said that he didn't care about the Venerable Martial Academy at all, and only wanted his body back to normal. Another tab also appeared and told him that if Kim Sojun could complete the limited quest, then his punishment could be cancelled. Then, inevitably, Kim Sojun finally accepted the quest, and the first task to complete the quest was that he had to meet the nobleman on the first floor of the inn tomorrow morning. The next morning, Dan Sik-young looked like she was waiting for someone, and accidentally saw the crack in the floor where the skeleton warrior appeared. Feeling that she would find the person at the academy, she decided to go alone. But as she was about to leave, her steps stopped when she saw a man walking down the stairs who was none other than Kim Sojun and the skeleton warrior. At that time, Kim Sojun was wearing the robe used by the skeleton warrior, where there was an academy badge. Seeing the badge, Dan Sik-young realized that Kim Sojun was the person she wanted to meet. Meanwhile, in his mind, Kim Sojun felt very upset because he had to do something troublesome, because he had to meet a nobleman he did not know at all. Then his reverie was interrupted when he saw Dan Sik-young in front of him, who immediately greeted him. Dan Sik-young introduced herself, but she didn't get any response from Kim Sojun. In his heart, Kim Sojun said that he didn't expect the girl in front of him to be the nobleman mentioned. The atmosphere then became awkward, until it made Dan Sik-young apologize for being rude to him, but she only did it because she was very happy to meet a student of the same academy as her, especially since that person managed to beat up the bandits last night. At that time, a notification tab appeared if the quest was successful, and a new quest appeared where Kim Sojun had to follow the nobleman to the Venerable Martial Academy. Additional rewards will be given when the affinity level reaches 100, and the additional reward is a +1 skeleton slot. Kim Sojun accepted the quest, and soon above Dan Sik-young's head appeared a heart-shaped object with the number 15% written inside, which indicated the affinity level, and if it was full, then Kim Sojun could summon another Golgol. Kim Sojun then glanced at the skeleton warrior, and suddenly his eyes shone brightly while laughing. Kim Sojun then recalled his encounter with the skeleton warrior, where he would have died if not for the sect's young leader Golgol. If he could summon another Golgol, then it would definitely be a big help for him. Kim Sojun then smiled while muttering that it was all good. Hearing Kim Sojun seemingly talking, Dan Sik-young asked what he was talking about. Kim Sojun was surprised, and he lied by saying that he was happy that he could go to the academy with her. Dan Sik-young smiled happily, because she thought she was the one who should have said those words. On the way, Dan Sik-young asked about the skeleton warrior who followed them. He felt strange because the person behind her was wrapped in a very creepy blanket. Kim Sojun also saw Dan Sik-young confused by the skeleton with a blanket. He explained that it was his bodyguard, and he deliberately wrapped the skeleton with a blanket. Hearing that explanation, Dan Sik-young said that she now understood why people in the Central Plains were considered quite strange. After that, out of curiosity, Dan Sik-young asked about Kim Sojun's origin. She guessed that Kim Sojun must have come from a prestigious Orthodox sect. With a laugh, Kim Sojun replied that he did not come from the place she thought. He only came from a small sect without a name. Hearing that, Dan Sik-young panicked and immediately apologized because, considering how honest he was, she thought Kim Sojun was from an extraordinary sect. In order not to feel awkward, Kim Sojun replied that he didn't mind at all if he was considered like that. Their conversation didn't stop there. Dan Sik-young asked him a lot of questions, especially about what weapons he used to fight. Dan Sik-young apologized for asking such a question because, for Jianghu people, weapons are as important as their lives, but she asked it without thinking about it and considered herself stupid. Hearing Dan Sik-young's babbling, Kim Sojun showed his annoyed face while answering that he also used a sword to fight. Kim Sojun was annoyed that Dan Sik-young kept engaging him in conversation without stopping, but even so he had to endure because listening to her story would help him to increase her affinity level, which had now reached up to 52%. In the middle of the journey, a strange rustling sound was heard. Kim Sojun asked questions about the sound he heard, while Dan Sik-young seemed not to care about it and kept talking without stopping. Then from above them several weapons shot towards Dan Sik-young. Kim Sojun, who knew it without thinking, immediately saved Dan Sik-young. But because of his action, he was stabbed by so many weapons all over his body. With a worried face, Dan Sik-young asked why he did that. Instead of answering her question, Kim Sojun asked how Dan Sik-young's condition. Seeing Kim Sojun's heroic actions made her affinity level become full quickly. The quest tab reappears and tells him that 100% affinity has been reached, and he gets an additional reward of 1 skeleton slot, even though he managed to save Dan Sik-young. But in his heart, Kim Sojun cursed because what he did almost made him die. He could still live only thanks to the skeleton. Then shortly from the forest came a group of people who approached them. One of them said that if Dan Sik-young fell after their attack, then they wouldn't have to waste each other's energy unnecessarily. As her senior in Jianghu, he didn't want to fight his junior. Hearing that, Dan Sik-young took out her sword and immediately came forward to protect Kim Sojun. From what she heard, Dan Sik-young was sure that these people were people she recognized. Seeing the condition of Kim Sojun's body that had been stuck with a weapon, Dan Sik-young promised to protect him and draw his attention. One of the men asked if it was true that she was the eldest daughter of the Dan Gansu clan. Hearing that, Dan Sik-young did not expect the men in front of her to know her identity. The men laughed while Dan Sik-young gritted her teeth in annoyance. She pointed her sword at the men while saying that she would not hesitate to kill anyone who came to her with bad intentions. Without further ado, Dan Sik-young darted quickly towards the men, while Kim Sojun and the skeleton warriors could only stare at her. In Dan Sik-young's mind, she thought that the one who attacked first would win, and the most important thing right now was that she would subvert them first. Dan Sik-young then used Dan Clan's secret arts, Sun Moon Sword technique. She swung her sword, and a yellow flash appeared from her sword. She was confident that her attack would hit the man, but she didn't expect it to be so easily dodged by the man. She was so shocked that her eyes widened in disbelief at what she was seeing. Unexpectedly, the man ended up striking back at her by kicking her in the stomach and causing her mouth to bleed. The attack had made her almost unconscious, but due to her strong endurance she managed to regain consciousness and issued another attack, Moonlight Reversal, which almost hit the man. although the man didn't think her attack was that bad. With a dismissive look, the man said that it was obvious that Dan Sik-young hadn't studied well at all. If she wanted to kill him, Dan Sik-young should have a little more confidence. He then strangled Dan Sik-young until she was in pain, and the longer he strangled her, the stronger the strangulation became, leaving Dan Sik-young helpless. The sword that she was holding earlier fell down. Then suddenly, with a scary face, Kim Sojun shouted to the man to stop the action immediately. The man turned his head towards him, and not expecting that he was still alive, he then threw Dan Sik-young's body to the ground and approached Kim Sojun and the skeleton warrior. With a dismissive look, the man said Kim Sojun could still be alive if he pretended to be dead, because right now he really wouldn't hesitate to kill him. While advancing towards him, the man said not to hate them too much. After all, this is what murim is all about. Still with his creepy gaze, Kim Sojun was silent and then remembered the beginning of his arrival. He was initially shocked by the place called murim, as the people there always greeted each other with swords, while regarding other people's lives to be worth less than a fly. However, ironically, the situation gave him a sense of freedom after decades of being bound by the law. And in situations like these, there's no need to hesitate to use violence, unlike in the past. Then, with a firm voice, he said to the skeleton warrior that it was time to shine. The skeleton warrior, who hid his body behind a floral blanket, from under the blanket his eyes shone brightly, and then slowly advanced towards the men. Seeing that did not seem to scare the man, and instead ordered his subordinates to kill them. He also said they must not let a single person live to tell what happened tonight. After getting the order, his subordinates immediately ran towards them with various weapons to attack. The skeleton warrior was seen preparing with his sword, holding the sword from behind his body. He immediately swung his sword as they all approached, but unfortunately his attack this time missed where they all managed to avoid the attack. One of them underestimated the skeleton warrior by saying that his movement was too slow, but his words were stopped when he accidentally saw the skeleton warrior's eyes glowing where there should be no human eyes like that. In that moment, he felt that those eyes showed no emotion, but were like a person who couldn't feel anything. In his careless state, the skeleton warrior again swung his sword and slashed the man's body in half, making all of them there show a face full of panic. From what the skeleton warrior showed, they believed that he was a martial master and they had no choice but to pin him down. Then one of the men threw a chain at the skeleton warrior that made him wrapped around the chain and unable to move. In his helpless state, they all together tried to attack him by stabbing his body using swords. But unlike what they imagined, they felt strange when their swords pierced the skeleton warrior's body, where they all felt like they were piercing the air. Meanwhile, in the distance, Kim Sojun, who saw the skeleton warriors being surrounded, began to feel that the situation might make them both lose, but suddenly he came up with an idea. Kim Sojun remembered that he had managed to get an extra skeleton slot after completing the quest. He then ran quickly towards a dead man, while the other group of men were still busy attacking the skeleton warrior because he didn't die despite being stabbed with so many swords. Showing a disgusted face, he approached the body of a man who had been split in two and summoned it. Then the man's body shone so brightly that it distracted all of them. Then the man's body that had been split into two then reunited, and then his body melted until leaving only his bones. He then turned his head by showing a very horrible face while shouting very loudly. Right after summoning the man, a tab appeared informing him that he had successfully summoned his second skeleton, and he would get a fragment of the power of the skeleton he summoned. From the second summon, he could cancel his summon. Kim Sojun, who was exhausted, then ordered the skeleton to kill them all, and without a signal, the skeleton ran towards them and attacked them with the Void Fist technique, making some of them successfully defeated. Meanwhile, the skeleton warrior was still trying to untie the chains on his body. With great difficulty, he cut the chains with his sword. In the end, his efforts were not in vain. He managed to cut the chains so that the people who tried to restrain his movement were blown away. With a scary face and while laughing, the skeleton warrior panicked them all to make those who were there like hypnotized, unable to move. The skeleton warrior took the opportunity and then slashed their bodies. Now the two skeletons worked together to fight to defeat the men until in the end, only one person was left there. With a meaningful smile, the two skeletons looked at the man while laughing horribly. Seeing that, the man ran to escape and grabbed an item tied to Dan Sik-young's waist and then ran back quickly. But surprisingly, there was a skeleton warrior who caught up with him, and without further ado, he immediately killed the man until fresh blood spurted everywhere. After the fight ended,
Kim Sojun carried the unconscious Dan Sek-young under a tree. Kim Sojun sighed tiredly due to the tension of the situation. Then the skeleton warrior returned and showed Dan Sek-young's belongings that were taken by the man. Kim Sojun was very curious as to what kind of item the men were looking for to chase a child. While observing the package, Kim Sojun speculated that the item must be a great treasure. When he opened the package, he saw a butterfly-patterned box that made a luxurious impression. Seeing the outer appearance already looks amazing, he is sure that the inside of the box must be even more amazing. When he opened the box, Kim Sojun was very surprised by what he saw where inside the box was a smartphone. He wondered why it was there.
Kim Sojun felt that it all made no sense at all. And even stranger, when he held the smartphone, he realized that the smartphone was the latest model. From what he found, it made Kim Sojun's head spin thinking about who Dan Sek-young really was. Soon after Dan Sek-young came to her senses, she was surprised to see Kim Sojun holding the smartphone. Stammering, Dan Sek-young asked him to return the smartphone to her. Then she took the sword and immediately pointed it at Kim Sojun while saying that she didn't want to point the sword at her savior, so she asked Kim Sojun to give the smartphone back to her. Seeing the panic on Dan Sek-young's face, Kim Sojun could only look at her closely and saw that her hand was so nervous while holding her sword. Kim Sojun sighed, and with a sharp gaze he said before returning the object, he wanted to ask Dan Sek-young one thing. First he asked who the people who attacked them were. But Dan Sek-young replied that she didn't know who those people were either. All she knew was that there were many people who were targeting her clan's treasure, and she thought they were one of them. Then secondly, Kim Sojun asked whether Dan Sek-young knew what exactly the object he was holding right now was. Dan Sek-young replied that it was her family's treasure. She didn't know the details, but she was sure that it could be used someday. Hearing this explanation, Kim Sojun was even more confused about what happened to the world. For him, it made no sense to keep a smartphone as an heirloom. Seeing Kim Sojun not budging after hearing her answer, Dan Sek-young once again asked Kim Sojun to return the object while still holding her sword tightly. Although still curious about how Dan Sek-young's family was able to get the smartphone, for now Kim Sojun would refrain for the time being until he could complete this quest. He then returned it to Dan Sek-young, who was very surprised that Kim Sojun would easily return it to her when many people were targeting it. After getting it back, Dan Sek-young hurriedly apologized to Kim Sojun because she had pointed her sword at her own helper. Kim Sojun said he was okay with it. Seeing his attitude like that made Dan Sek-young even more fascinated with the kindness shown by Kim Sojun that made her eyes couldn't stop looking at his face. Then Dan Sek-young suddenly looked up at the sky and was surprised to see that the sun was about to rise. She yelled to Kim Sojun that they were already late for the academy. She said that if a student didn't get to the academy before sunrise, their admission would be cancelled. Kim Sojun, who heard that, became shocked, because if he didn't get to the academy on time, then he would fail his quest. And if he failed, he would live as a skeleton forever. Not wanting that to happen, Kim Sojun asked Dan Sek-young to leave quickly to continue their journey to the academy. Unfortunately, when Dan Sek-young was about to walk, she felt pain in her ankle that made her unable to walk. Since it was impossible for her to walk, while enduring the pain, Dan Sek-young told Kim Sojun to go first. Kim Sojun was worried because if Dan Sek-young arrived late, then her acceptance would be cancelled. Hearing that, Dan Sek-young felt sad and did not know what to do because the current situation did not allow her to continue the trip at all. Kim Sojun then approached Dan Sek-young and then embraced her to help her stand up with a smile by inviting her to go together since they were classmates. Dan Sek-young looked at him with emotion, and then the two continued their journey to the academy. At the Venerable Martial Academy, there were 4 men standing in front of the gate. One of the men, named Man Chan, the chairman of the 7 Strike Sword Student Council, looked very tired and said that it was time to close the gate. But one of his friends said that there were still 2 people who had not arrived. Man Chan, who heard that, could not tolerate it because for him the rule was to close the door at dawn. There was no forgiveness for those who were late on the first day. Just as he was about to close the gate, a voice shouted not to close the door, and Kim Sojun and Dan Sek-young were seen limping with sweat pouring down their faces towards the academy gate. Despite hearing their voices, Man Chan firmly told his friend to close the gate. Seeing the gate continue to close, from a distance Kim Sojun asked them not to close the door. Man Chan then shouted to them to go back because they were already late. Not accepting his words, Dan Sek-young responded by saying that the sun hadn't fully risen, but her words were completely ignored, and instead Man Chan said that it was all his decision. Feeling guilty, Dan Se-kyung kept trying to convince Man Lee-chan to let them in. She said that they were both in an unexpected situation, and she would explain everything to him. Unfortunately, her efforts were in vain. Man Lee-chan didn't want to hear her excuse at all, while Kim Sojun looked worried, because if it continued like this, then he would fail the quest. With a face full of resentment, Kim Sojun called Man Lee-chan and then challenged him to a fight. Whoever wins, then that person can do whatever he wants. From inside the academy, Man Lee-chan, who heard this, was so angry and provoked that he agreed to the challenge. Man Lee-chan was such a promising talent that his appearance at the academy caught everyone's attention. When he introduced himself as a 7-strike swordsman, Dan Se-kyung was surprised because from what she heard he was very strong, and she began to worry about Kim Sojun's safety. In the fight, Man Lee-chan said that if Kim Sojun could take 5 punches from him, then he would let them in. Dan Se-kyung, after hearing that, became even more worried, because she thought that 3 punches was too many. Kim Sojun remained silent, then stepped forward as a sign of accepting the terms. Dan Se-kyung tried to stop him, but Kim Sojun remained stubborn and insisted on fighting Man Lee-chan. In his heart, he laughed at Man Lee-chan, because if he fought his skeleton warrior, he would definitely win this fight. But his face became panicked when Man Lee-chan told him that in the fight, he had to fight him directly without the help of his bodyguards. Seeing his panicked face, Man Lee-chan was surprised because he didn't expect Kim Sojun to think he would send his bodyguards to fight with him. Not wanting to be underestimated, Kim Sojun agreed, and then he took the sword from the skeleton warrior and prepared to attack him. Man Lee-chan was shocked when Kim Sojun pulled out his sword, which made him call him an arrogant man, so he promised to make him regret it. Man Lee-chan then ran towards Kim Sojun while holding his sword. Meanwhile, Kim Sojun, who was still standing in place, felt a tremendous pressure that made his legs unable to move. Man Lee-chan was getting closer towards him. He tried his best to move, but still his legs seemed to be held back by something, until when the sword almost hit his body, he managed to deflect it with his sword. But because Man Lee-chan's sword swing was so strong, his body was bounced far enough back that he lost his balance and fell. Seeing that Man Lee-chan counted it as 1 blow received, and soon Kim Sojun managed to get up even though his body felt enough pain to make him tremble. In that condition, Kim Sojun was sure he would not be able to block the next attack. When he thought so suddenly, a tab appeared in front of him, telling him that he would get a fragment of the power of his skeleton summon by transferring martial arts from his skeleton summon. Then a blue light came out of the skeleton warrior's body and then flew into Kim Sojun's body, making him enveloped by a very bright blue aura. Seeing Kim Sojun not focusing on their battle, Man Lee-chan became annoyed and unceremoniously darted forward towards Kim Sojun while swinging his sword, ready to attack. Kim Sojun, who was already exhausted from the previous attack, was surprised as his body miraculously moved on its own and immediately jumped to parry Man Lee-chan's attack. Not only that, he also ended up kicking him when Man Lee-chan was caught off guard, making it difficult for him to withstand his attack. From that punch, Kim Sojun counted it as 2 punches received, and he smiled with satisfaction at his accomplishment. The strength he received amazed Kim Sojun because he was able to become strong like that, thanks to sharing abilities with the skeleton warrior, who was none other than Cheo Woobaek. When he was caught off guard, Kim Sojun was surprised to realize that Man Lee-chan had disappeared from in front of him and appeared behind his body to attack. But the great thing was that his attack was dodged by Kim Sojun quickly, and even his speed could be said to be extraordinary because Man Lee-chan seemed to be confused by the existence of Kim Sojun, who could change places in a very short time. Kim Sojun then attacked Man Lee-chan repeatedly, making it very difficult for him to avoid Kim Sojun's attacks. Meanwhile, Man Lee-chan's friends looked very shocked because they didn't expect anyone to be able to get Man Lee-chan cornered. The fight became more serious. Now Man Lee-chan took off his red robe and pointed the sword at Kim Sojun. But instead of being scared, Kim Sojun looked confused, as he felt he had already fulfilled the 5-punch requirement. Man Lee-chan looked very upset while Kim Sojun casually walked towards Dan Se-kyung to help her walk into the academy. Not accepting that, Man Lee-chan tried to challenge him again, but his action was stopped by someone named Professor Baek-sa, who then told Kim Sojun and Dan Se-kyung to enter the academy. Unable to do much, Man Lee-chan finally gave up and invited the 2 of them to enter, and then left them. Dan Se-kyung then praised Kim Sojun's prowess, as she didn't expect him to survive against the leader of the student council, and someone who was famous for having promising talent. Kim Sojun said that he only withstood 5 of her attacks, and it wasn't like he won against him. But even so, Dan Sekyung said it was still great. Meanwhile in his mind, Kim Sojun was amazed that by sharing abilities with the skeleton warrior, his movements were as natural as if the abilities were his own. But he still wondered why the abilities were only active now. Seeing Kim Sojun's arrival, Professor Baek Sa seemed to know something where he said that Kim Sojun must be a young man who came from that place. And then he also said that the wind began to blow, and the wind smelled of blood. Then the wind blew very fast towards him. In the academy, Kim Sojun received a notification if he successfully completed the quest, and as a reward, the curse he received was cancelled, and then he returned to being a normal human being. Meanwhile, in a dark hallway, a man was walking while holding a torch to a place. Suddenly, the hallway shook and small stones fell from the roof, making thick dust blocking the man's vision. Then he came to a place where there was a huge spider web, and then the man thought about it with the torch. Soon a large and terrible creature appeared in front of him, which was known as the White Phantom. The man stared at it sharply, and then threw a liquid towards the White Phantom while saying murim must be purified so that his world would return again. After doing this, the man ran away while the White Phantom looked even more terrifying with its glowing red eyes. After 2 days of arriving at the academy, in the morning Kim Sojun was seen relaxing on a garden chair. He was reflecting on his life's fate that had regressed where in the original plan he was going to enjoy life by spending his gold coins, but now he was stuck in an academy that he didn't know at all. But even so, he would not give up on his new life, and planned to do nothing while there and then graduate from the academy quickly. While still enjoying the bright morning atmosphere, suddenly Professor Baek Sa was right in front of him, greeting and saying that he knew where Kim Sojun was from. Kim Sojun was surprised and wondered if this old man in front of him knew that he was from Korea. Professor Baek Sa continued his words. He could tell that after he saw the fighting style Kim Sojun showed against the student council leader, he could clearly feel the deep energy that only members of that place use. From the conversation, Kim Sojun was able to conclude that what Professor Baek Sa meant was the origin of the skeleton warriors. Then Professor Baek Sa also introduced himself to Kim Sojun. Knowing that the old man in front of him was a professor, he felt quite worried because why would a professor come to look for him? Whether it was because he fought with the student council leader, or there was another reason. Not wanting to create suspicion, Kim Sojun turned around to introduce himself to Professor Baek Sa. But unlike what he thought, the professor seemed suspicious of him after he mentioned his name. According to him, as far as he knew, the leader of the place was not from the Kim clan or anything else. Fortunately, even though he was suspicious, but Professor Baek Sa did not want to bother and said that it was none of his business. Then, out of curiosity, Kim Sojun asked about the purpose of coming to him. But his question was greeted by the laughter of the professor, who said that he was a new student who was quite brave, not only brave, but also impolite. Professor Baek Sa's face suddenly turned emotional, and he used his ability on Kim Sojun to teach him a lesson. But because Kim Sojun used the ability from his summon, which is impervious to killing intent, Professor Baek Sa's power had no effect on him at all. Professor Baek Sa was surprised to see that Kim Sojun didn't feel anything at all, which made him call Kim Sojun a unique man. Then he said that the principal is currently looking for him, and he was asked to meet him immediately. Seeing Kim Sojun's confused face, Professor Baek Sa explained that since the Venerable Martial Academy's exchange program with that place was approved, the principal was very curious about his new student. Professor Baek Sa also took him to the principal's place. On the way, the two of them occasionally talked. The professor suddenly asked about the atmosphere of the place. He said the Orthodox faction and the demonic sect will unite after 70 years, so shouldn't the atmosphere of the place also change? The demonic sect and the Orthodox faction have been enemies for a long time, and it must have been a difficult decision. From what Professor Baek Sa talked about, Kim Sojun understood that the place was the Orthodox faction, and the skeleton warriors were from the demonic sect. And if it was said that they would unite after 70 years, he understood more about why the skeleton warriors were attacked. It was probably because there were some people from the demonic sect who did not want to unite with the Orthodox faction. Kim Sojun was worried that it would be a problem for him. Professor Baek Sa then woke him up from his reverie and said that the two of them had arrived at the principal's room, and he asked him to go in there himself. Before leaving, Professor Baek Sa told him to always be careful, and he also told him not to trust the principal too much. Kim Sojun then thanked him for the advice. Then he walked towards the principal's room. Just before entering the room, he suddenly felt a very strange feeling, and somehow suddenly a tab appeared in front of him showing a time. When entering the principal's room, he met a white-haired old man named Jong Ritai, who was none other than the principal of the venerable Martial Academy. He said that he had been waiting for him for a long time, hearing that Kim Sojun apologized because he should have greeted him immediately after getting there. Then Kim Sojun asked about Jong Ritai's purpose for wanting to meet him. Jong Rit replied that the Orthodox faction people think people from the demonic sect have horns, and they are monsters who drink human blood, but there is not much difference between the demonic sect people and the Orthodox faction. He then asked if what he said was true. Kim Sojun casually said if he also thought that way. Jong Ritai then asked Kim Sojun again, how did he respond to people from the Orthodox faction who thought that they were far superior to people from the demonic sect? Kim Sojun was silent and answered that they were free to think whatever they wanted because he didn't want to strip them of their freedom to think. Getting a very surprising answer, Jong Ritai seemed to be amazed by the words of a child from a demonic sect. He laughed satisfied with the answer given. Jong Ritai then walked slowly towards Kim Sojun and gave him a request. She asked Kim Sojun to become the best student in the academy and bring down those hypocrites from the Orthodox faction and change their mindset. Right after Jong Ritai finished his words, a new quest appeared in front of him to become the best student among new students. If he succeeded, he would get a special summon, but if he failed, he would get a curse from death. Not only that, if he refused the quest, then his summon slot would be reduced by 1. Seeing the quest in front of him made Kim Sojun very upset, because if he refused the quest, he lost so much that it made him inevitably accept the quest. With his voice shaking from holding back his emotions, Kim Sojun replied that he would accept Jong Ritai's request. Jong Ritai smiled with satisfaction at Kim Sojun's answer, while Kim Sojun, while holding back his emotions, asked Jong Ritai as the principal of the academy to take care of him while he was there. Jong Ritai smiled and said that Kim Sojun was very humble and did not expect that there was someone like him among the promising talents in the Orthodox faction. Despite being praised like that, it didn't put Kim Sojun in a good mood, but it made him even more upset. After finishing with his business, Kim Sojun said goodbye and left there feeling very upset. Right after Kim Sojun left, Jong Ritai just realized that there was one more thing he wanted to ask Kim Sojun, which he wanted to ask about a writing behind him. Meanwhile, outside, Kim Sojun looks still upset and says if they won't be able to thwart his plan with that trick. Despite getting a request like that, he remains with his stance where he will not do anything and become the best student no matter what. Soon, Kim Sojun felt the same strange feeling again when he had just arrived there. Then the time tab appeared again in front of him. At first, Kim Sojun did not want to care about the tab, but because the table appeared continuously in the end, he followed the direction of the arrows on the table and thought if it could be that the tab wanted to show a treasure place. He followed the arrow and arrived at a place where there was a staircase leading to the basement. Kim Sojun felt very happy because what he thought was right. He was sure that in that underground room he would get an extraordinary treasure. Just as he was about to go down the stairs, he collided with a man who was frantically running out of there. The man rolled over and fell and re-entered the underground room. The man scolded him, asking what the students were doing there, and told Kim Sojun to get out of the way. Kim Sojun became confused. Suddenly his time at the tab ran out, making him even more upset. Kim Sojun felt strange with the attitude shown by the man where the man said that it was too late. The giant white phantom had woken up. Confused, Kim Sojun tried to ask about the meaning of what the man was talking about. Before he could answer from inside the underground room, a very terrible aura was felt which made the man's face turn pale. Suddenly the ground around them cracked, and from the basement appeared a creature that made the man run in panic fear. He quickly tried to run up the stairs out of the place, but unfortunately the creature pulled out his nails and stuck them right in the man's heart until fresh blood flowed from there. Kim Sojun was shocked, and did not expect what he was seeing at this time. The white phantom then showed himself completely with red eyes that flashed. He tried to run towards Kim Sojun to attack him. Luckily at that time, Kim Sojun was in a state of readiness, so that he immediately summoned a skeleton. Shortly after that, from the ground came out a skeleton that immediately attacked the white phantom. Unfortunately, the strength he had was not comparable to the white phantom, so he easily defeated him. You can see the anger on the white phantom's face. With one attack he managed to defeat the skeleton to make his body fall apart. The white phantom then ran towards him ferociously. Kim Sojun tried to revive the skeleton, but apparently could not because his body was completely destroyed. The white phantom's attack finally hit his body, Kim Sojun felt an extraordinary power that made it difficult to attack. Because he could not withstand the White Phantom's attack longer, Kim Sojun's body was slammed far and fell down, making it difficult for him to get back up. While cornered, Kim Sojun saw a sword lying not far from where he was. He then tried to grab it. With trembling hands, Kim Sojun managed to grab the sword, and right at that moment the White Phantom was already in front of him. Kim Sojun laughed because of his missed estimation, where he previously thought that in the basement there was treasure. But in fact, the opposite turned out to be a terrible monster that appeared. With the remaining energy, Kim Sojun tried to get back up. But before he could attack, the White Phantom had attacked him first. Fortunately, with his increased agility skills, he could easily avoid all White Phantom attacks. When the White Phantom's view was obstructed by the dust, Kim Sojun suddenly appeared and attacked the White Phantom with his sword until it hit his head. The White Phantom became even more enraged, his eyes showing great anger. He brutally attacked Kim Sojun. Kim Sojun was bounced away again, leaving his body lying helpless. But he didn't give up. When the White Phantom was near him, Kim Sojun did not lose his mind. He spontaneously changed his attack tactics, where he changed the target of his attack this time. With his agility, he managed to make the White Phantom's stomach hurt until he screamed in pain. Even so, it didn't have much effect on the White Phantom, so he could still attack Kim Sojun. Kim Sojun got attack after attack, but he managed to parry it with his sword. But even so, the White Phantom was getting more aggressive and attacked him blindly. Just as his attack was about to hit Kim Sojun, from behind the bush, a skeleton warrior came and cut one of the White Phantom's body parts. With the presence of the skeleton warrior, the two of them together tried to defeat the White Phantom. After considerable effort and good cooperation between them in the end, they both managed to defeat the White Phantom. After their victory, a tab appeared telling him that he could add a White Phantom to his summon slot, and Kim Sojun agreed. Soon a group of people arrived, and were shocked by the terrible situation there. They became hysterical when they saw the dead body of the man killed by the White Phantom, who turned out to be a professor. The principal, Jong Rite, who was also there, was confused by Kim Sojun's presence, so she asked if Kim Sojun defeated the White Phantom. Kim Sojun also explained that previously he heard a strange sound and he came there, but when he got there he was surprised because there was a terrible monster. Then in order for him to survive, inevitably he must kill the White Phantom. Jong Rite was amazed because for him it was not easy for a child to face the White Phantom, let alone kill it. Even though it felt strange, but he was grateful that Kim Sojun survived, and then he told him to return to the academy. Kim Sojun also said goodbye and left there, but it seems that Professor Baek-sa did not accept Jong Rite's decision to let him go, because according to him, Kim Sojun was the only witness to the incident. Not wanting to make the debate even longer, Jong Rite, as well as the principal, asked to take care of the students so that they would not panic over this incident. On the way to the academy, Kim Sojun was very curious if he could summon a White Phantom. He tried it, and it worked. The terrifying White Phantom that he previously encountered has now turned into bones, making his figure not so terrifying anymore. After getting a relentless attack from the White Phantom, with a mischievous look, Kim Sojun ordered the skeleton warrior to teach him a lesson. The skeleton soldier then approached him and beat the White Phantom until he looked in pain. After being satisfied with pranking the White Phantom, Kim Sojun then cancelled his summons and continued his journey to the academy. When he arrived at his dorm room, Kim Sojun was shocked to see that the roof of his room had been destroyed. This turned out to be the work of the skeleton warrior, where while he was there he heard Kim Sojun was in danger, so he thoughtlessly broke through the roof to get out. The skeleton warrior's behavior made Kim Sojun only sigh, then lay on the bed while looking at the sky seen from there. When he saw the moon shining brightly there, he saw something strange, where it turned out that there was a knife sliding towards him. Fortunately, the skeleton warrior immediately blocked the attack so that he could survive. The knife was stuck in the wall of his room. When he picked it up, there was a piece of paper, and when he opened it, there was a message asking him to meet behind the Jessie dormitory that night. Kim Sojun ignored the message and preferred to sleep. On the other hand, behind Jessie's dormitory, there was a person in a robe standing on a tree. The person was none other than the person who sent the message to Kim Sojun. The person looked bored because she had waited for Kim Sojun for a long time, so in the end she left there with a very annoyed look. In the morning, Kim Sojun walked in the academy area while enjoying the familiar atmosphere, where the atmosphere felt the same as at school in general. After walking quite a long way, he arrived at his class. From outside the classroom, a young man was seen introducing himself. The young man named Noah came from Sarang, and he was the head of the class. His introduction did not seem to be well received by the students in the class, where they all showed confused faces. Kim Sojun then entered the class, and he unwittingly hit Noah's head with his book, shocking the whole class. Kim Sojun panicked because of his habit of being a teacher, coming out at an inopportune moment. Noah interpreted his action as a challenge, and as a warrior, of course, he would accept the challenge. Noah then tore off his shirt, saying that since he first came to school, today was his most excited day. Before Kim Sojun could explain, Noah was already preparing to attack. Seeing the sudden battle in the classroom, one of the students in the class became enthusiastic to the point of calling it a furious battle because he could see the fight of one of the descendants of a Jew macho, who was none other than Noah. With his fist, Noah darted towards Kim Sojun, but he managed to dodge the attack quickly. Even his speed surprised him. Kim Sojun did not attack him at all, and only avoided his attack, making Noah confused. In the midst of his confusion came a teacher who immediately hit his head with a book just like Kim Sojun did before. Kim Sojun, who was already sitting on his chair, could only smile with relief. While Noah was being punished for breaking the teacher's desk, the bald-headed teacher began to introduce himself. With his ability, he wrote his name on the blackboard without touching the chalk at all. He was known as White Tarian, and he would be teaching them for 1 year. He said maybe some of them had heard the name and some had not. Suddenly, one student said he knew the name, White Tarian, Baek Muyong from Baeksan. Out of curiosity, another student asked him if the White Tarian was so great, to which the boy replied excitedly by saying that he was the one who was chosen by Master Baek Day as a student. So it was an honor for him to be taught by a master like him. Hearing the child's explanation, all the students in the class looked very impressed with the teacher in front of them. But the atmosphere became tense when White Tarian said they had to learn seriously. If they didn't want to, they would all die. Hearing these words, a student tried to ask about what the teacher meant. White Tarian explained as they had heard, something was happening on campus, which was because they were killing each other. The students' faces turned deathly pale and asked what exactly happened. But White Tarian couldn't give a clear answer because the case was still being investigated, and whoever it was had to be held responsible. He then pointed to Kim Sojun and said that if he was the one who had to be responsible, he also said that he expected a lot from Kim Sojun while he was in his class. While whispering, White Tarian said a surprising thing where he said with Kim Sojun's presence in his class, he could decide whether he would save him or not. Kim Sojun then gave a sharp look to White Tarian after he finished his words. As a teacher, White Tarian gave some advice to his students, saying this was a battlefield. The school needed children to be murim. It was also a place for them to choose talented people. He also asked them to choose the class president by hand, and there were some students who were very enthusiastic about becoming class president. After class, Kim Sojun began to think while shaking his chair. He felt that the people at school were strange, not only the principal but also the teachers in his class. He felt that they would not let him do whatever he wanted, but he was sure that it would not affect him. Because in Korea he had been desperately trained, even students and teachers had difficulty defeating him. While he was still shaking his chair, he suddenly lost his balance and almost fell down. Fortunately, Dan Sik-young came to save him. When he wanted to say thank you, Kim Sojun was surprised because the one who saved him was Dan Sik-young, a chatty woman he knew. Seeing Kim Sojun, Dan Sik-young asks if he is the masked man she knows. But because Kim Sojun thinks of Dan Sik-young as an annoying woman, he hides his identity and says he is not the person she is looking for. At first, Dan Sik-young doubts if she recognized the wrong person. But seeing Kim Sojung's strict attitude, she becomes convinced that Kim Sojun is not the masked man she recognizes because the masked man she knows has a friendly and generous nature. Feeling that she recognized the wrong person, Dan Sik-young left the classroom, leaving Kim Sojun behind. Soon, Kim Sojun was greeted by one of the students there named Yuson from Hapok. He also returned the greeting by introducing himself. When he was about to shake his hand, Yuson looked at it with a strange look and asked what was wrong with his hand. Kim Sojun realized that in the world of martial arts, they are not familiar with shaking hands, so he abandoned his intention. In the chat, Yuson asked if Kim Sojun would sign up as class president, because from what he knew, if they became class president, then they would get 20% extra points. Kim Sojun, hearing this, was shocked. Initially, he was not interested in becoming class president, But now he was excited because if he managed to get these points, then he was likely to be the best student. He shouted in the classroom that he was going to be class president and took them all up to the roof. On the roof, all the class president candidates will fight each other. The first battle starts from Kim Sojun against Noah. Whoever survives the last is the strongest. The battle began. Noah, who was very excited to become class president, did not hesitate to unleash his strength. Around his body there was a yellow aura like fire that enveloped him. He then tore his pants to reveal a tiger-patterned shorts. Not much ado, Noah attacked Kim Sojun. Although his strength was quite strong, but Kim Sojun managed to withstand the attack. Unlike the previous fight, now Kim Sojun counterattacked Noah with his fists and managed to hit Noah's body, making him bounce away. The action also made all the students surprised and did not expect that Kim Sojun had such extraordinary strength. Although Noah was hit by his attack, but it turned out that it was not the end of their fight. From behind the billowing smoke, Noah was seen standing ready to attack, but not what he thought. He fell before he finally attacked again. Kim Sojun's victory received happy cheers from his classmates. The next battle was about to begin, because it would be very troublesome if he fought one-on-one with the class president candidates. Kim Sojun finally challenged the remaining 6 candidates to fight with him at once. The 6 of them then attacked Kim Sojun simultaneously, and he easily defeated them all. The rain came down, soaking the bodies of the class president candidates who were lying helplessly. Kim Sojun declared that he was now their class president, and he asked them to study well. His classmates cheered happily to welcome their new class president. He then smiled with satisfaction because he finally managed to get 20% extra points, enough to carry out his mission. But in the midst of that happiness, a sword darted forward and almost hit him. Then several men approached him. One of the men was named Mo Youngju, Class President 1 and Class President 2, who came because they were interested in how they chose the class president. Mo Youngju gave Kim Sojun a dismissive look and said that Kim Sojun would be a useless class president, seeing how he dodged his attacks. Not even he was interested in playing with him. He left, but stopped when a sword whizzed towards him and almost hit him in the face. Not to be underestimated, Kim Sojun challenged Mo Youngju to a fight with him, and with a sly smile, Mo Youngju accepted the challenge. At first, Mo Youngju felt that she didn't need to do anything to defeat Kim Sojun, because it would be easy. But when Kim Sojun's first attack came, he changed his mind because he didn't expect Kim Sojun to have such fast movements that it was difficult for him to avoid his attacks. Getting hit so hard, Mo Youngju ended up jumping into the air to avoid the attack. In his mind, it would be a shame and humiliation if he lost the battle. Picking up his sword that was stuck in the wall, Mo Youngju began to confront Kim Sojun more seriously. He smiled and said that Kim Sojun shouldn't make him fight with a sword, but his words were completely ignored by Kim Sojun. He brutally attacked Mo Youngju until he was cornered, until finally his sword could not withstand the power of Kim Sojun's sword, and finally broke. Kim Sojun's victory made everyone who was there very shocked, and Yosan also cheered for Kim Sojun's victory, who had now become their class president. Before he left there, Kim Sojun advised that from now on, he had to have good manners, and then Kim Sojun left, followed by his classmates. Together with Yosan, Kim Sojun also walked to the cafeteria for lunch. On the way, he asked about the meaning of chain god. Yosan explained that it was a term for someone who came from a 5-generation royal family. Seeing Kim Sojun's confused face, Yosan asked if he didn't know about his tax obligations. Without Kim Sojun answering, seeing the expression he showed, Yosan could easily tell if Kim Sojun didn't know all that at all. Yosan also explained that there were 9 famous groups including Gongdopa, Glorinpa, Shaolin, Wudang Tribe, Volcanic Tribe, Cheongseong Group, Jomchangpa, Southern Amila, Jongnampa, and there was also one group outside of that, which was the Beggar Group. It is said that the 5 great generations dominate the group. They are the most prestigious, pure-blooded, and the top of the middle class. After getting that explanation, Kim Sojun understood that Mo Youngju was one of those groups. That's why he had a very arrogant nature. Then Kim Sojun asked Yosan about his family. Yosan awkwardly answered that from what he heard, they were great people in the past. Because of the expression Yosan showed, he hit the back of Yusan's head and said why he said it sadly when his family sounded great. Hearing Kim Sojun's words, Yosan was touched and did not expect anyone to talk to him like that. Then, in his mind, from his experience of being a teacher, people with privilege usually always make trouble. As the class president, he had to know whether there were members of the upper class or not, so he asked Yuson about it. Yuson replied that there were no such people in their class at all, which is why many people in other classes called their class an inferiority class. Hearing that Kim Sojun did not wonder why the children in his class had a little deficiency. After walking for a long time, the two of them arrived at the cafeteria. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Mo Yongju and his colleagues came to a place to meet a man. The man congratulated them on their acceptance, but his eyes were distracted when he saw Mo Yongju's messy appearance. Knowing that Mo Yongju was defeated, he stood up from his chair and then approached him with an angry look and asked who did that to him because what he did was tantamount to demeaning the tax group. Sweat poured down Mo Yongju's face, and he knelt down to beg the man for forgiveness. The man took out his sword and struck Mo Yongju on the head and said he would give him a chance, and he hoped Mo Yongju would do well. The man approached Mo Yongju and whispered something into his ear. He said that if there would be a new student admission ceremony, he could use the moment to harm him. It didn't matter if his body parts were cut off. He asked Mo Yongju to use the opportunity well because he wouldn't give a second chance to an incompetent person, and he smiled with a horrible grin. I am a living skeleton. Right now I was lying on the ground dying. I tried crawling toward my master to save the succubus mistress who was currently being attacked by a knight, but my struggles were in vain. The succubus madam's heart was pierced by a knight using her sword. The powerless me was unable to protect the succubus mistress. In my heart, I asked them to stop. I begged them not to kill the succubus mistress. As I was crawling, a shield crushed my collarbone. The skull of my head that was blown off by it rolled into the face of the succubus mistress. The succubus mistress who had died was now drenching the ground with her blood. I saw the succubus madam's face filled with agony. The succubus madam had tears streaming down her face. Seeing those tears, I felt very sad. Madam, I apologize for not being able to protect you. I remembered the succubus mistress who treated me kindly and affectionately. However, now he is dead. If only I had been a little stronger. The knights who thought that their task had been successful finally chatted. Seeing the knight who was laughing with his comrades, I rolled my head toward his feet. I then bit the knight's leg and tore the flesh off his leg. My skull was soaked with the knight's blood. If only I was given a second chance. The knight who was angry because he was injured cursed me. He said that I was just a skull and trampled my skull shattered. The knight kept stepping on my bones until they shattered into pieces. Amidst this incident, I thought that I wanted to get stronger. As my consciousness faded away, I heard a voice in my mind that all conditions had been met. The voice also said the level of mixing had decreased from 97.3% to 94.8%. I can't see anything. Everything feels very dark. Is this what it feels like to die? If I'm dead, that means everything is over. This is an apt ending for a pitiful skeleton warrior like me. I want to rest in peace. Suddenly I heard a voice. I'm not sure what's making that sound. It was so loud that I couldn't rest. The sound was getting louder and louder. I wish the sound would stop. I woke up. In front of me are trees and clouds in the sky. Feeling cramped, I finally realized that I was in the grave. I'm not sure what's going on. Am I dreaming? I'm sure that this isn't a dream. So this place may be the afterlife. I was lying on the ground now, sitting on the ground. Raindrops began to fall onto the earth. I'm starting to think this place looks familiar. In front of me suddenly appeared a message window saying that the inheritance was successful. I don't understand what this message means. After reading the message, a status window popped up showing mine. In the message window, it says that I haven't been given a name yet, and I have the skeleton soldier class and various statuses of mine. Next to the class was written that I was level 1 of the 36 level stats. Seeing that I don't understand what is meant by that, I don't understand the current situation. While I was dazedly looking at my status window, a voice called out to me. The owner of the voice appeared and revealed the figure of a robed woman with a dagger at her waist. She introduced herself as Rubia and said that she had awakened me from my sleep. I wonder what else is going on now. I then realized that she was Rubia. He should have been a necromancer in training from 20 years ago, the one who made me into a skeleton soldier. The rain was now getting heavier and the thunder started to rumble. I finally stood up after sitting on the ground for quite a while. I'm still confused about what's going on right now. I thought maybe it was 20 years ago that I first resurrected. Rubia, who saw me remaining silent, convinced herself that of course I wouldn't be able to speak. I thought that I might be dreaming. Because if not, then this girl will soon be killed by bandits. But that is nothing compared to my having to care about myself. If he died at the hands of bandits. Before I finished thinking, I was reminded of what happened with the succubus mistress. I then changed my mind. I came out of my grave and lifted Rubia on my shoulders and carried her like a thing. He was surprised to say that I was very rude. He also asked me to put him down because he is my master. Rubia struggled because she wanted to be put down. To calm the struggling Rubia, I said that I would protect her. Rubia was surprised that I could speak. Since he didn't seem to hear what I said, I once again said that I would protect him. Rubia was surprised to hear that. He asked me to put him down, but I ignored him. If I can't protect a girl like this, there's no point in me going back to life. Suddenly, a message window appeared in front of me. The message said that the S-Class scenario, Ray Rubia, had started. I don't understand what this message window means. In my status window, it was written that Rubia had felt attached to the skeleton she had resurrected. Rubia now called out to me and said that isn't time to put her down. But I refused his request and said that we should hide. Rubia and I then hid behind a rock. Shortly thereafter, the sound of two people riding horses was heard. You can see a big man carrying a big hammer as his weapon, and a man carrying a crossbow as his weapon. I had the wrong memory. These two people had not coincidentally crossed this street. But they are looking for this girl. Judging from their clothing, they weren't bandits, but professional assassins. The man with the crossbow said he didn't see anyone. He then advised his friend to return. I wonder why the assassins are looking for this girl. The assassins were now finally riding their horses. Rubia was finally relieved that the assassins were gone. I then asked Rubia if she was a fugitive. Rubia, who heard my question, felt offended. He said that he was the rightful heir of a lord. Before Rubia could finish speaking, a crossbow stuck into Rubia's shoulder. I looked in the direction the crossbowmen had come, and saw it was the crossbowmen who had shot Rubia. Those bastards were only pretending to leave to catch us off guard. The hammer-wielding assassin now appeared from behind Rubia and laughed at what Rubia said. He said that he was an angel of death who was invited by Lord Hyun. Hearing the assassin's words, Rubia started shaking in fear. Seeing Rubia's beautiful body, the assassin tried to rape Rubia. From behind the man, I lifted a very large rock and threw it at the man's head. Rubia looked scared. I then grabbed Rubia's hand and tried to convince her not to worry because I would protect her. Rubia also tried to grab my hand. I said that we better run fast. Before I finished speaking, a large hammer hit my skull. The hammer-wielding hitman wasn't dead yet. She, who was clutching her head in pain, asked Rubia how she knew how to use necromancy. He then wondered what kind of skeleton was this strong. I couldn't move because he had cracked my skull. I'm pissed off. I've just been given a second chance. But will it end in vain? Again, I was unable to protect anything. Seeing that I couldn't move anymore, the big hammer came back to rape Rubia. I finally woke up again. I saw the same scene when I woke up earlier. I don't understand what just happened. While I was confused, a familiar voice called out to me. I glanced in the direction of the voice and was surprised that I saw Rubia, who should have died. Rubia introduced herself as before and said that she had awakened me from my slumber. After waking up, I checked my current state. I'm fine because I've been resurrected. I'm back here, in the same place with my memories intact. It's all the same, except for one thing. Memorials. A message window appears in front of me so that I can choose one of the bonuses. The options for those bonuses are plus 20 goodwill for necromancers and plus 40 blunt resistance. The me who saw the message wasn't sure if I was ready to vote for this. I thought that we should move quickly. We can't just sit back and let what happened before happen again. I called Rubia, and Rubia was surprised that I could speak. I then asked him to hide behind the big rock I pointed at. Rubia looked confused and asked why she had to hide there. I explained to Rubia that the human mercenaries would be here looking for her soon. Rubia looked disbelieving. I convinced him to trust me and asked him to hide. Rubia started to think. He then asked me how I knew they were coming. I replied that I only knew. Hearing my answer, Rubia was even more confused by the meaning of my answer. In the distance came the sound of horses. Since we were running out of time, I asked for the dagger that was on Rubia's waist and promised that I would protect her. Rubia finally gave away her dagger and started hiding. The assassins finally arrived. They dismounted and started to scatter in search of Rubia. The crossbowman wondered if Rubia had run away because he didn't find any clues. The crossbowman slowly approached me, who was lying on the ground playing dead. While he was off guard, I stood up to him and cut his throat from behind with the dagger. Finally, I did. Several message windows appeared telling me that I had leveled up. I, who had just killed one of the assassins, was caught off guard and received a hammer strike to my head from behind. The hammer-wielding assassin was confused as to why there was a skull cap in the middle of the forest. He thought that there might be a dungeon nearby. Even though the attack impact was slightly reduced, I still took too much damage. The big hammer finally decided to smash me into pieces using his hammer. That's how I died a second time and was resurrected like before. It seems I have to both men or avoid them if I want to continue. However, if I choose to avoid them, it means they will continue to chase Rubia. No matter how many times I have to repeat this, I have to kill them. For now, I'll put all the points I got from killing that crossbowman into agility. In my third life, I managed to kill the big hammer. But instead, now I get shot in the head by the crossbowman, and he kills me. In the fourth life, after gaining a lot of experience and levels, I finally became agile. The sledgehammer who saw me kill the crossbowman so easily trembled in confusion. He didn't understand how a skeleton could do that. I felt that the big hammer was off guard, attacking using my dagger. The big hammer user was still able to avoid my dagger. After a few swings, I finally saw an opening and slashed at the large hammer user's neck. I finally succeeded in killing the two assassins who were targeting Rubia. After making sure the assassins weren't moving, Rubia finally came out of hiding and asked if everything was over. After confirming the assassins were dead, Rubia finally breathed a sigh of relief. After 3 deaths, I finally succeeded in protecting someone. Looking at what has happened so far, it seems that every time I die, I always return to the time when I was first summoned. I always start from level 1, but my skills and stats stay the same. And with this memorial bonus, if I experience something new before I die, I gain a new ability. One thing I'm worried about is I don't know how many times I'll be able to revive. I don't know what to do if I have the number limit to revive. Rubia called out to me, who was thinking, and asked if I heard what she said just now. I said that I was just deep in thought and asked him to repeat what he said earlier. Rubia was a little frustrated that I didn't listen to her. Rubia told that her father was a ruler in a region and used the name Lord Ray. Rubia's mother died when she gave birth to Rubia. Lord Ray was an honest and virtuous and noble man. However, all that changed when the crown prince ascended the throne. The new king at this time was a warmonger. He also expanded conscription and improved military training. He even gave peerage titles to people with aggressive personalities. Amidst it all were several rulers who resisted this new change, including Rubia's father. Then one day, Rubia finds her father dead. Rubia, who couldn't do anything, could only cry bitterly. That was why he was currently on the run. If my memory serves me correctly, the king is about to launch an invasion. A large-scale invasion to unite all the lands under one king. A war that continued for up to 9 years. Not long after that, there was the resurrection of 16 demons. Rubia was just a sacrificial lamb caught in the middle of this mess. It's really regrettable. I don't have the power to prevent war, but I should at least be able to keep this girl safe. After hearing Rubia's story, I tried to comfort Rubia and said that she doesn't need to worry because I will protect her from now on. Seeing me trying to comfort her, Rubia laughed a little. He thought it was funny hearing a skeleton say that. I have to get stronger so I can protect her. I will do anything so that one day I can meet my mistress. We finally decided to go to the nearest village. After quite a long walk in the cave, we finally saw a light indicating that the exit was near. Rubia was very excited and ran outside. Rubia looked even more excited to see the snow piled up outside. I don't understand why he is so excited because even Snow said that snow is just white ice. Rubia threw a snowball at my face and said not to be so emotionless, even though I'm just a skeleton. I answered that skeletons usually don't have emotions. Rubia, who heard what I said, couldn't help but look awkward and said she understood. I finally said that we should hurry. Rubia, who was climbing the mountain, asked me if the place we were going to was Yublum. I replied that he was right and said that we will reach Yublum sooner after climbing over this mountain. Rubia, who was out of breath, also said that we should buy armor for me when we get there. I don't see why we have to buy armor. Rubia explained that I couldn't wander around the city looking like this. Rubia, who was completely exhausted, asked to rest for a while. Before she could finish her sentence, Rubia slipped from her footing. Luckily, I managed to catch Rubia's hand before it was too late. After I brought Rubia to safety, she finally thanked me for saving her. Rubia smiled happily and said that I always protect her. Since we were almost there, I asked Rubia to hold on a little longer. After quite a tiring journey for Rubia, the sight of Yublum finally came into our view. Rubia, who felt that our journey was finally over, looked happy. He then said that it was his turn to protect me now. Rubia said that a living skeleton couldn't walk into the palace. He was planning to go in to find me a suit of armor so I could go inside. I asked Rubia if she would be okay. Rubia replied that she was sure she would be fine, and this was nothing compared to what I had done so far. Running excitedly inside, Rubia then asked me to wait for her as she will be back soon. Waiting for Rubia, who returns, I can only wait. Time went on. The time I waited even changed from an hour today. 3 days have passed, and I'm still waiting for him because he said he'll be back soon. I was waiting when I heard a voice. Out of curiosity, I went to check what was going on. I found an old man who was grumbling because he was given a troublesome task. The old man was carrying a cart and throwing away the things he was carrying in the cart. After the old man left, I, who saw what the old man threw away, couldn't help but be speechless. Because what the old man threw away was Rubia's corpse. In the end, I failed again to protect her. I feel worthless because I can't protect anything. While I was grieving, I heard the voices of 2 men talking. One of the men was grumbling as he had just been beaten as if he were a dog. The other man said of course he would be mad because the merchandise that arrived had died before selling it. I, who listened to their conversation, did not understand at all what they meant. The beaten man asked where they had left the body of the woman they had dumped. He felt it was a waste if they just dumped his corpse like that. To search for Rubia's corpse, the man left his friend who returned to the inn. Finding Rubia's corpse, he smiled as he put his sword belt on the ground and intended to rape Rubia's corpse. Taking advantage of the man's guard, I took his sword and stabbed him in the back. Because he was stabbed, he screamed in pain. I then threatened him that he would die if he even moved a bit. I asked that this girl's corpse was left here. The man replied that the innkeeper had given the girl to them. I then asked the next question: who killed this girl? He also replied that he only followed the leader of the guards and killed him. Hearing his answer, I asked him if raping a dead body was also an order from his superiors. He wasn't sure how to answer. I deepened my sword thrust and drew my sword from his chest. The man who was on the verge of death was shocked when he saw my figure. He couldn't believe that a skeleton had killed him. Seeing Rubia's corpse's eyes still open, I closed them so she could rest in peace. Remembering what the recently dead man had said, I rushed into the city. Under the light of the moon, I finally found the inn I was looking for. When the innkeeper opened the door, I kicked him in the stomach and sent him flying. Frightened, he knelt on the floor. The innkeeper misunderstood and said that he really didn't know anything. Not sure what he meant, I asked him what he meant. The innkeeper replied that he was talking about what happened to the members of the organization that went after Lord Ray's daughter, and he really didn't know. Not knowing who the innkeeper was referring to, I asked him who he was talking about. The innkeeper realized that I wasn't from the organization he was talking about. As the innkeeper was trying to raise his head, I stepped on his head and stuck my sword in front of him. The innkeeper screamed in fright. I said that he only needed to answer my question. I then said that 3 days ago, a daughter of the ruler came here, and then she was dragged away by the guards. The innkeeper asked if I was the girl's companion. I said yes, and asked why the girl died. The innkeeper tries to escape, but I stabbed his leg to prevent him from running. He also cried in pain. The innkeeper then begged to spare his life, and said that he would tell me everything. He said that he only handed over a lone girl to the guards. He explained that the leader of the guards must give women to the Necrons to be used as slaves. After he said the name of the Necron Society, the snake tattoo that was on his neck became alive and strangled the innkeeper's neck. The suffocating innkeeper was struggling for help. However, all of that was just a futile struggle. He eventually died, and the snake turned back into a tattoo. Seeing what happened, it seemed that the tattoo was a curse. I thought there must be something going on between the Guardians of Yublam and the Necrons. The current me is too weak to meddle with them. In the corner of the room was an armor. Looking at the armor, I thought of Rubia saying that she would buy me the armor. I then put on the armor. I have to become stronger so that no one will surpass me, so that I don't lose someone again. I'm currently exploring the dungeon of the Ghost Grave House. This dungeon is quite small, so for me alone. Soon I found a skeleton. I feel awkward to fight because we are both skeletons. I also showed my face and said that I didn't want to hurt the other skeletons. The skeleton was confused, not knowing what to do. Looking at the skeleton, I wonder if I looked like that before meeting the succubus mistress. I feel that they are pathetic for not being able to speak. Not wanting to fight with fellow skeletons, I turned my back to go find another dungeon. As I was about to leave, a message window popped up in front of me saying that the boss of the dungeon had appeared. A moment later, a skeleton appeared 3 times the size of an ordinary skeleton that carried a large mace as its weapon. The skeleton I met just now was trembling in fear before the dungeon boss. The dungeon boss then raised his mace and smashed the skeleton in front of him to pieces. I don't understand why he killed his own subordinates. The dungeon boss then roared and ordered his men to attack me. I began to take a position to fight. I easily slashed the 2 skeletons that came charging at me. After taking care of the 2 skeletons, I noticed a hammer attack appear above my head. I dodged the hammer strike by jumping to the side. The dungeon boss growled as his attack missed. The dungeon boss then returned to swinging his mace. I dodged his attack again and attacked his left leg. I, who was happy to have injured the boss of the dungeon, let my guard down by celebrating too soon. I also received a mace blow to my body. I guess I was feeling too optimistic, hoping that he would calm down after breaking one of his legs. The dungeon boss swung his mace again. I dodged by, jumping up and up on his head. Since we are fellow skeletons, I know what our weaknesses are. I then stabbed the dungeon boss's skull head hard. The dungeon boss roared as his weak point was hit and died. I finally managed to level up 5 times at once, because I managed to beat this dungeon boss. A moment later, a quest window popped up, stating that I had to swing my sword 10,000 times. If I succeed, the quest will reward me with a swordsmanship skill. Just by swinging the sword 10,000 times, will my sword skills increase. This me who doesn't need food or sleep should be able to finish this quickly. Since the owner of this dungeon is gone, I should be able to do my training here in peace. This quest is more difficult than I thought. If my sword swing isn't perfect, that move doesn't count. In the middle of my training, a message popped up saying that an intruder had arrived. In a dungeon hall, a man and 2 female adventurers were seen exploring this dungeon. The man now explained to the girls that this dungeon was filled with skeletons and this dungeon was too dangerous for the girls right now. He then assured them that they would be fine since he was here. One of the female adventurers, who looked like a bitch, then said that she was afraid of getting hurt. The adventurous man who heard the woman's anxiety said that they only needed to get ready and watch. He then showed them a pouch full of expensive healing potions, and said if they got hurt, he would give them treatment. The girl looked amazed to see the contents of the bag, and praised the man. The other woman was speechless because of how easy the man was to read. He was sure that the adventurous man was quite wealthy. He was also sure that the bitch was trying to get close to the guy, knowing that already. The woman planned to cheer him up a bit for now, and when the man was too busy fighting monsters, he would kill them and take all their treasure. The adventurous man felt very lucky, due to the fact that this dungeon for beginners was only filled with weak skeletons. Even though the boss was quite half-hearted, he had come fully prepared. The man thought of showing his cool side to impress the two ladies. He then started drooling and imagining what they would do. Since nothing had happened after they entered for a long time, one of the thieving women asked why they had not seen any skeletons. The man also made excuses that they were still in the entrance area. He himself didn't understand why the dungeon was empty. It wasn't long before they finally found the corpse of the defeated dungeon boss. They started to think that maybe someone had already cleared this dungeon. The thief woman thought that she had no luck. He then intended to attack them since they were off guard. While they were all confused, I finally appeared before them. Noticing my presence, the male adventurer became alert. He asked who I was and whether I had defeated this dungeon boss. They weren't sure if I was a person or a monster. I replied that I had taken over this dungeon and asked them to leave. The adventurous man felt relieved to think I was a person. The man also judged from my tone that I might be someone higher than him and thought that he shouldn't fight me. Since there was nothing he could do, he invited the girls to return. Unexpectedly, that thieving woman actually tried to heat up the situation so that the male adventurer would fight me. Not wanting to look bad in front of women, the man was instigated by the thieving woman. Seeing the stupid man's behavior, the woman thief smirked behind the man because of his stupidity. The adventurous man pointed his finger at me and said that I have no manners and that I should take off my helmet before talking to them. According to his request, I took off my helmet and showed my face. Seeing my real figure, they were surprised. Asking them if they were satisfied, I asked them to leave. The bitch thought I was no ordinary skeleton and suggested they should leave. The man, however, ignored him and confidently said that I was just a skeleton that got armor from somewhere. The adventurous man also warmed up and challenged me. Despite my warning, the man still ignored my warning and tried to swing his mace to attack me. He thought that he was currently showing his cool side to the girls. However, before he could swing his mace, his arm was sliced off by my much faster sword strike. Due to his hand being cut off, the male adventurer was groaning in pain on the ground. The bitch who saw this incident was frightened and tried to run away. I don't understand why he didn't leave after I warned them. When the bitch was running away, she was stabbed by a knife thrown by the thieving woman who came with her. I, who thought that the thieving woman had missed, started preparing to fight. Seeing that I was ready to fight, the thieving woman gave herself up and begged me to spare her life. I can only be confused by what happened. The thieving woman then introduces herself as Rena, who is from the T&T Guild. The T&T Guild is a guild that commits murder, steals, and provides information. Hearing Rena's explanation, I also asked if Rena's target had been that bitch. Rena said it would be troublesome for me if that woman managed to escape. Rena asked me to think that she had saved me from imminent trouble. I didn't plan to kill him, though. I asked what the reason was for killing his comrades, because he could have aimed for my back. He replied that he knew that I wasn't someone who could be defeated by such tactics. Then Rena explained that Rena brought them here with the intention of killing them from the start. I, who already understood what was going on, finally asked Rena not to disturb my practice and do whatever she wanted because I had spared their lives. Seeing that I thought that I had nothing to do with her, Rena said that she might be of use to me. I, who thought I didn't need his help, remembered that I needed information. I then asked if he also gave information. Rena looks happy that I need her, and asks if there's anything I want to know. I asked him if he knew anything about society. Rena also looks troubled because the information I requested is high-level information. He knew something about the Necron Society, but Reyna asked for one condition. Reyna didn't seem to understand that she should be satisfied for sparing her life. Reyna said that she understood. However, it would be very difficult to tell what he knows if I'm not a member of the guild. I could buy that information directly from the guild, but it would be difficult with my facial features. Understood by Reyna's intention, I finally asked her what the requirements were. Reyna said that he wanted me to be his ally. When Reyna asked me to become her ally, a scenario appeared before me, asking me to help Reyna to increase her rank in the TNT Guild. There are many things I still don't know, but one thing for sure is that I need information. Reyna wasn't sure if I heard her. He then called me and asked if I was practicing. Because if I accept him as an ally, not only will he provide information, but he can also help with my training. After hearing what he wanted to say, I grabbed his neck and lifted him up. As if killing his own comrades for his own benefit wasn't enough, he did it without hesitation to his fellow humans. I don't want to be stabbed in the back of my neck. Hearing my statement, Reyna then laughed. He said that he didn't like humans at all because they didn't see Reyna as a human. He even said that he likes me more than the human race. Reyna also asked if we had experienced the same thing, because whenever they see me, they only see monsters whose skulls should be crushed and left to die. The Necron Society is a shadowy syndicate that has a hand in producing drugs, contract killings, human trafficking, and other things that can generate money. The community was even supported by rulers from various places, as well as powerful people in the Empire, which made the scale of the Necron Society very large. Despite all that, no one knows the identity of the syndicate head, or the location of his headquarters. That was all the information Reyna had, because the rest of the information was only stored by those at the top of the guild. That's why Reyna came up with the idea that I should hunt humans the same way humans hunt monsters. Reyna will bring her assassination targets to this dungeon and I will gain quite useful experience. With this, Reyna can rank up in her guild, and with that, she can give me the information I want. All of this sounded fine to me, but I asked him one more time to be sure. Will Reyna not hesitate to help me kill her fellow humans? Reyna, who heard my question, smiled broadly and said that she hates humans. Hearing Reyna's answer, I finally agree with our agreement. Inside this labyrinth, I'm dealing with 3 intruders. I managed to defeat one of the intruders easily with my sword. An angry archer who saw me kill his comrade aimed his bow at me and tried to shoot me. But before he could shoot his bow, he was stabbed by the knife that Reyna threw from behind him. Reyna, who was caught off guard, was now kicked by the last intruder. He was angry because Reyna had seduced them and trapped him into her trap. Due to his being distracted, I stabbed my sword from behind him. After a few months of doing this, now my level-up speed has slowed down even more. I'm starting to think that I should move to another dungeon. Reyna looks happy to come to show the loot this time. This week's loot looks a lot this time around. It was all because Reyna had seduced so many people. Reyna then explains that even if I kill people like she promised with the contract, there will be little money in her share since they are all criminals. Reyna was very annoyed that these criminals avoided being caught by the guards by bribing them. Reyna thought that they all deserved to die because they had committed all kinds of crimes such as robbing and raping. Looking at the results of the loot with some of the books we got. One of those books is called The Unsightly Magician. The book chronicles the irresponsibility of magicians even though they enjoy immense superiority. After reading the book, a message popped up saying that my knowledge had increased. When I saw the message, I was shocked. Reyna, who didn't understand what happened, asked what happened, but I ignored her. After finally reading all the books we had, only 2 books added to my knowledge. One thing that both books have in common is that this book was written by Kevin Ashton. Seeing that I was so interested in books, Reyna asked if she should go to the village and see if there were any other books. Reyna was always responsive as usual. I replied that it was okay. I then asked if there was another dungeon near here. Reyna then explained around here there are 4 other dungeons. The dungeons were Class E Dungeon, Class D, Spider Tower Ruins, and Class C, Misty Loop, and Slum Forest Zone. When I wanted to ask for help when he returned to the village, Reyna was already asleep in my lap. Dai might just be exhausted from going back and forth from the dungeon to the village and vice versa without rest. Seeing Reina, who was already asleep, I decided to level up my swordsmanship. However, when I tried to stand up somehow, I felt very tired. I decided to continue later and fell asleep. Before my consciousness faded, a message appeared in my mind that said that my affinity with the dungeon had exceeded 20%, and I was starting to lose my humanity. I wonder if I just fell asleep because I shouldn't be able to sleep. Gradually, the face of the succubus mistress who should have died came into view. Seeing me awake, the succubus lady asked me if I had a good dream. I realized now that I was lying on the lap of the succubus mistress. Feeling that I had been impolite to fall asleep on his lap, I immediately tried to stand up. Seeing my reaction, the succubus mistress said that she shouldn't have woken me from my deep sleep. Realizing that my armor was missing, I panicked. The succubus lady hugged me, who was panicking, to calm me down. He thought that I had been having a bad dream. He then asked what story I wanted to hear today. Hearing the succubus mistress's words, I felt sure that everything was just a bad dream. I feel so relieved that the succubus mistress and I will be living in this dungeon again for a very long time. Happily. I still can't believe that it was all just a dream. Everything felt so real to be a dream. But none of that mattered because the succubus mistress was still alive and unharmed. The succubus lady, who noticed that I wasn't paying attention to the story, asked if the story was too boring for me. The succubus lady then invited me to finish talking about my dream. He asked about the girl named Rena and what kind of person she was. Rena finally woke up from her sleep. Realizing that the skeleton lord was not beside him, he decided to look for him outside. Having failed to find the skeleton master outside, Rena decided to look deeper into the dungeon. Before Rena went back in, she noticed the commotion outside. Many troops outside were trying to investigate this dungeon, because many adventurers and civilians had disappeared around here. Realizing that this was a bad thing, Rena rushed to find the skeleton lord. After hearing my story, the succubus mistress said that Rena was a lively child, because she asked to be my ally in a life-threatening situation. The succubus lady then asked if I would let Rena die too, just like I left the succubus lady to die. I don't understand at all what the succubus madam is saying. While I was at a loss, a message window popped up saying that an intruder had appeared. Given what happened to the previous succubus mistress, I swear they won't do that again. This time I will definitely protect him. Rena finally found the skeleton lord. He said that this was not the time to relax, and it was time to get ready to leave because there were troops outside. Rena saw that the condition of the skeleton lord was a little strange. Suddenly, the lord of the skeletons attacks Rena. Rena is now sure that something is wrong at this time, because she is acting as if she is being possessed. The troops had finally arrived. Those who found Rena and a skeleton wearing armor were now sure that they were the targets they were looking for. They started shooting arrows at them. Rena asked the skeleton master to wake up immediately because things were getting dangerous. Lady Succubus asked me what I was doing. I replied that a group of soldiers would be attacking this dungeon soon, and I would take care not to be harmed by those bastards. Rubia appeared before me and asked why I let her die. Seeing Rubia, I fell to my knees. I don't understand what's going on. Rubia says I have promised to protect her, but he still died. The succubus lady then asked me from behind why I couldn't protect them. He answered all that because I was weak. They began to take out all their sadness and anger on me. They said that everything was my fault, and they had been wrong to trust a skeleton warrior. It's all because I'm too weak. I can't protect anything. I feel like I'm drowning because of my powerlessness. Because of that, I want to become stronger. Outside the dungeon, one soldier was seen reporting that they had found their target to a knight. Just by the knight's appearance, it was clear that he was not an ordinary knight. Rena, who was currently taking cover behind the bar, was being shot at by soldiers using crossbows. He didn't know what to do because the skeleton lord was still unconscious. Running out of options, Rena tied up the skeleton lord and pulled him. Before running away, Rena threw a bomb at the troops. The bomb exploded between the soldiers. Rena planned to attract the attention of the soldiers to go deeper into the dungeon before using a smoke bomb to escape. Unfortunately, some soldiers managed to catch Reina. The soldier said that everything is over and justice will stop Reina's crimes. Seeing the skeleton soldier who was with Reina, the soldier thought that the rumor that Reina could use necromancy was true. The soldier then ordered his subordinates to get rid of the skeleton soldier first. Because she didn't want the skeleton lord to get hurt, Reina tried to protect the skeleton lord. My consciousness started to blur. I feel like I'm drowning in the middle of a deep sea. I'm not sure who I am and where I am. I wonder if I'm dead. I started to think that maybe this was the afterlife because I got to meet Rubia and the succubus mistress. Still, I felt very relieved to be able to see them one last time before I died. Dead? I then realized that I would revive if I died. I'm sure this is all just an illusion. I have to get up. I have to become stronger to protect my mistress whom I met 20 years ago. Even if I'm crushed and trampled on, I'm a skeleton warrior that will protect its mistress. I swear to protect all. When I woke up from the illusion, I saw Reina who was covered in blood. I then caught Reina who fell down due to injury. I don't understand what's going on. It seems that Reina just protected me. The leader of the soldiers scolded his subordinates who shot Reina because they had to catch him alive. Reina, who was injured, tried to call the leader of the soldiers. The leader of the soldiers thought that Reina had given up, but his prediction was wrong. Reina asked if they smelled something. The warrior leader wasn't sure what he meant at first. When he realized Reina's goal, it was too late. At a location not far from them, several bombs exploded, which released toxic fumes. This toxic smoke made it difficult for them to see and breathe. Managed to make a mess, Reina now asked me to carry her away because all this time she's been dragging me all this time. Realizing that I was trying to escape with Reina, the leader of the soldiers ordered his men to stop me, but I easily beat them. After a while, we finally ran away from them. I don't understand why Reina isn't just born. If there were many such troops, he should have fled immediately. Reina, who heard what I said that she was her ally. I wish I wasn't trapped in that obscure illusion. We finally came out of the dungeon. I feel relieved not to see any other troops around here. I then laid down Reina and tried to provide emergency aid. But while I was trying to treat Reina, I received a knight's attack from behind me. The knight who attacked me then called out to an informant who was nearby and asked why he was wasting his time catching someone as weak as Reina. The informant said that he was sure that Reina was really a strong necromancer. The informant then sensed an extremely threatening aura from the knight. Frightened, the informant drew a knife and said that he would pay for his sin with his life. The knight stopped the informer and said that His Highness would care if an informant had been killed due to a false report. When the knight was about to leave, I stood before Reina to protect her. Who's he? I didn't even see him approach me or swing his sword. This knight was completely different. He was on a completely different level from the opponents I had faced so far. I'm not sure I can beat him. Reina, who was behind me, started wincing in pain. I have to finish this fight soon. Winning or losing is a matter of later. I have to make an effort. I dashed towards the knight and tried to slash him with my sword, but he easily dodged my attack. The informant who saw me attacking the knight said, "How dare I attack that person?" Seeing the soldiers starting to come out of the dungeon, the informant asked what they were doing and told them to help immediately. A moment later, this place shook. I don't understand what's going on. In front of me appeared a message saying an advanced skill had been used. Because my level was lower than the skill's user, my movement was limited. As a result of that skill, I wasn't even able to stand up. Seeing me refusing to lose consciousness, the knight thought I was interesting. Because Reina, who she thought was the witch who summoned me, has lost consciousness, but I can still move. He thought that Reina didn't look like one of the top-tier necromancers. If Reina really was a high-level necromancer, he thought that killing her now would be safer. The knight drew his sword before Reina. I can't let that knight kill Reina. I tried to force my body to move. With my body feeling very heavy, I jumped towards the knight and swung my sword, but all that is still in vain. He easily destroyed my sword with his sword slash, The knight who saw me still struggling said that it seems the report he received wasn't completely wrong. He raised his sword before me, slashing my body. There's no doubt that I'm dead. Reina might as well be dead. Even though I wanted to protect her, I went back to the beginning. If there was one good thing that happened, it was that I was able to return to the cemetery on a cloudy day, the place where Rubia was. When I woke up, the scene I expected to appear was nowhere to be seen. I didn't see Rabuya anywhere, nor the grave where I used to rise. Hearing a snoring sound in my lap, I finally realized that I had returned to the time before my illusion. I'm back to life again. However, I didn't find the rain and roar together with a weak necromancer. I started to wonder if I'd ever be able to see Rubia again. Just as I was feeling down about not being able to see Rubia again, a message window popped up. The message said that I had died 5 times, and I had reached my liking limit with necromancers in my previous life. As a reward, my title to necromancer changed to necromancer's lover. This skill looks useless for fighting. Does this mean the system has recognized Reina as a necromancer? If I think back, this girl said that she would protect me. I must return the favor. First of all, we have to get out of here first. I then woke up Reina and said to get ready to leave. I told him to leave anything that could become a burden and only take useful items with him. Reina, who rubbed her eyes because she was still sleepy, said that it was still dark outside. After finishing preparing, we finally started running to get out of this dungeon. If the message I saw before I lost my mind is true, I need to get out of here before that affinity rises any further. Because if not, the subjugation soldiers will arrive in the morning, and I won't be able to do anything and put Reina in danger. Reina now asks where we are going. I replied that we will go to the dungeon. Hearing my answer, Reina also suggested us to go to Spider Cave Ruins, because she heard that Middle Grave's dungeon is completely barren right now. Reina then said that the monsters in the dungeon disappeared like vapors, because there wasn't even an ant in sight. However, there is a possibility that there won't be anything to gain if we go there since the subjugation force is just there. Interested in the trooper Reina mentioned, I asked her if she knew about the knight in blue armor who had a lion carved on it. Reina asked what I meant was the Blue Lion Knight Templar. He explained that they were one of the knights who directly served the Empire. Out of curiosity, I asked how strong they were. Reina had never seen them herself, but it was said that they were ranked first or second among knights. The leader of the Blue Lion Templars was one of the swordsmen whose power was unmatched in the entire empire. One of them is known to always carry a white sword named Seraphim. The knight was a marquis named Vatien Ponrayandro. Hearing Reina's explanation, I was sure that the person called Reina was the one who beat me. I didn't expect that he was one of the top 4 swordsmen in the empire. What's someone like him doing here? While I was thinking, Reina said that we should stop at a nearby town if I want to go to the Lava Cave Ruins. Reina thought that we need preparations like an antidote or fire bombs for spiderwebs. And most importantly, Reina said that she wanted to take a bath. I thought that I thought too much about myself. That's why I agreed with Reina's suggestion. The city that Reina was headed for finally started appearing in our sights. The city we are heading to turns out to be Yublam. Seeing this town reminds me of Rubia. Reina said that this city was probably the biggest city in this region and had a large shop. Seeing me pensive, Reina asked if I might be uncomfortable being in a crowd of people and asked if she should go alone. I don't want something like before to happen. I can't send Reina to go there alone. That's why I said that I will also go. Hearing my answer, Reina also put a cloak into my armor. I'm confused about what Reina is doing since I don't need something like a cape. When we tried to enter the city, a gatekeeper asked us to pay to enter. Reina took money from her pocket and paid the gatekeeper. After receiving the money from Reina, the old gatekeeper steals his glance at Reina's chest, and we both look like tourists. Reina then hugged my arm and said she came here with her husband. The old gatekeeper looked irritated and said that we could enter. I asked her who she meant by her husband. Reina replied, "Who cares, because there is nothing embarrassing about this." Reina then realized something. I asked if something was wrong. Reina replied that she smelled opium on this street, and the smell was very strong. The opium smell was very strong, even though there were no opium warehouses around, and we were even in the middle of the city. Hearing Rena's words, I felt suspicious. The townspeople for some reason seem unfriendly to foreigners. The atmosphere here feels a little strange. Rena suggested that we should find an inn first and leave immediately. We finally arrived at the inn I've been to. A woman who appears to own the inn greeted us and asked what we needed. Rena replied that we needed a room and asked to bring food to our room. The new female innkeeper doesn't seem to have the snake tattoo on her neck like the previous owner. As I was looking at the woman, she noticed that I was watching her and said that it looked like I wanted something other than food and lodging. Hearing that, Rena looked at me and looked angry. I don't understand at all what happened. Morning has arrived. We are currently walking downtown, aiming to go to the general store. Rena, who was walking cheerfully, said that she felt as if all her tiredness disappeared after sleeping and showering all the time. Seeing Rena, who was cheerful, I said that I'm glad to hear that. I stayed up all night, but no one tried to sneak into our room. I wonder who would go through such troublesome steps just to get a lone girl. I felt a glance from behind, but saw whoever was behind. Rena asked what was wrong. I replied that it was okay and advised me to leave immediately. We finally arrived at the general store to buy our necessities. But apparently this store doesn't have what we need. The shop owner said that they had run out of firebombs and antidotes. Rena was disappointed. Because the firebombs and antidotes had run out, Rena asked to buy 10 medium-sized bottles and a barrel filled with tar. The shop owner said they had run out of it too. Rena, who was getting annoyed, asked what they had. The owner of this shop seems to look down on us because we are not from here. The shopkeeper then told us to get out and said we weren't welcome here, and he didn't have anything to sell us. Rena is getting annoyed because of the shop owner's treatment. Seeing this situation is not going anywhere. I suggest Rena that we should go. I pulled Rena's hand to leave the shop, and Rena started complaining because of the shop's treatment earlier. As we were leaving the store, we noticed someone following us. Realizing we were being followed, we tried to lure the people following us into an alley. The person was finally hooked. Catching the stalker off guard, we managed to catch the stalker who was following us and put a sword at his neck. Seeing the stalker's face, I remembered that he was a blacksmith we saw when we entered the city. I asked the blacksmith man why he was following us. The blacksmith man then asked us to follow him, as it would be dangerous for us if we spent more time here. We finally arrived at his blacksmith shop. I also asked why he followed us and brought us here. Before answering my question, the man poured a glass of drink and drank it. He then asked that we were going to the Spider Cave ruins. Rena was surprised how she could know. The man said that firebombs and antidotes were items needed to explore the ruins. The man also explained that we won't be able to get those items here even if the general store sells them. Hearing the man's explanation, I was confused why they wouldn't sell those things. The man replies the reason they will not sell it is because the ruler of Yublum and his guards are keeping the spiders. Rena was surprised to hear the story of the blacksmith man. Even the blacksmith man didn't know why they kept that monster. The blacksmith man then told me that this city was almost dead. After the previous city lord died in an accident under very suspicious circumstances, the new lord replaced the city guards with rascals no better than animals. Since then, opium began to spread around the townspeople and everyone became addicted. People started selling their land and houses at exorbitant prices to buy more opium, and even the lords of these lands were happy to take it from their hands. Anyone who disobeyed or questioned the ruler, they would all be dragged into the spider ruins, including his beloved wife. Hearing the story from the blacksmith man, I asked him why he told us. The man says he wants me to avenge his dedum. I don't understand why I have to do it. The man then says, didn't I come here to do that? He pointed at my armor and said he made this armor. I was surprised to hear that. The man remembered that a young lady bought this armor for someone who loved her. Hearing that, I clenched my fists in anger. The man said that tourists who come to visit the city alone have become targets. Out of anger, I grabbed his collar and asked him why he didn't do anything even though he already knew. The blacksmith man said he was a coward. He had lived his life like this all along. An old man seemed unable to do anything to save her. He himself knew that it was very sad. After the atmosphere had calmed down a bit, the blacksmith man said that by now the leader of the guards and his men should be taking the fodder to the spiders. He then gave something to burn up the bastards and all the spiders. Rena, who saw the object given by the blacksmith man, was surprised, because the object he gave was the Grasmere fire, which was obtained in the sea and will never be extinguished. This Grasmere fire is said to be that this bottle of fire bottle is not available even in the blacksmith town of Grasmere. Grasmere was this blacksmith man's hometown, and had only managed to make the fire once in his life. He explained that once the fire was lit, it would never go out. If this fire bottle wasn't strengthened with cooling magic, then the flames would continue to burn for decades. He then gave her a flamethrower and a bag of objects. He said to use this pouch before using the Grasmere fire so I don't feel the heat from the fire. Originally he was saving the fire to create masterpieces, but he felt that it was all right, as long as I can finish off those evil bastards. On the way to the Spider Cave ruins, we saw people who were caught by the guards being taken away to be eaten by the spiders. Not wanting to be found by them, we are currently hiding from them. We finally arrived at the Spider Cave ruins. This dungeon is bigger than the dungeon I stayed in before. I told Rena to bring her flamethrower. Since this thing looks dangerous, I told him to use it only in emergencies. After getting ready, we entered this dungeon. After taking a look at the contents of this dungeon, Rena said that this was her first time here, and rather than inside the ruins, she felt like she was in a cage. Rena tries to start a conversation, but I ignore her because I'm thinking. I don't understand why it's so quiet in here. Many people came here before us. The trails divide into many directions, and the condition of the ground makes it difficult to find their way. This made me not sure where we should stop on our way first. Seeing me, who was deep in thought, Rena said that she wanted to ask something. He asked how much Rubia meant to me. I replied that Rubia didn't mean much to me. Rena wasn't sure about my answer because the blacksmith man said that Rubia bought the armor for someone she loves. I also explained that this is an item that I need for our common good. Even so, in the end, I couldn't keep my promise to protect her. Hearing my answer, Rena just silent. The path we followed ended in a dead end. Since this road would lead us nowhere, I decided to turn back. Before we started walking back, Rena called me and gave me a necklace. I didn't understand and asked why she gave it to me. Rena said that she didn't give it to me and only lent it to me because it was something precious to her. I don't understand, Rena. If this necklace was something of value, he should have taken care of it himself. Before I finished my sentence, I felt something dripping from my helmet. I wondered what sticky water dripped off my helmet. Out of curiosity, I looked up and realized that what was dripping was saliva belonging to a spider hanging above. Realizing the existence of the spider, Rena took out her dagger and got ready to fight. However, suddenly Rena's legs bound by cobwebs were pulled up. Seeing that Rena was interested, I tried to reach her, but a spider attacked me using its legs. I dodged and slashed one of the spider's legs. While I was facing the spider, another spider attacked me from behind and knocked me off its feet. The spider Lala pinned me down using its body. When I was trying to escape from the spider's clutches, Rena screamed because she was hanging on while being attacked by a large number of small spiders. Rena panicked and asked for help from me. In order to escape from the spider that was pressing down on me, I grabbed my sword that was falling around and stabbed its head. I finally managed to escape the spider. However, seeing the number of spider eyes watching from the shadows, I realized that we were in deep trouble. I managed to kill one of the spiders surrounding me, but there were just too many of them. One of the spiders swung its leg to attack me. I dodged and slashed his leg. While I was busy fighting one of the spiders, another spider tied my feet using its web. I thought that this was nothing and tried to cut through the net that bound my feet. However, my sword pulled and seized using their nets. They then tied my hands and feet using their net. I'm really in big trouble. I can't accept it ended like this. Seeing that I couldn't move, one of the huge spiders swung its leg to attack me. I thought that maybe this was the end. However, suddenly the spider was sprayed by fire. It turns out that Rena had escaped using a flamethrower given to her by the blacksmith. It then shoots fire at the other spiders. I asked Rena if she was okay. He said that he barely made it out alive. Because Rena was caught off guard because she was talking to me, I alerted the spider Rena that was above her. Rena turned around and spit fire at the spider. Rena was amazed by the weapon she was using. So that's the reason why we carry the fire in the bottle. Because they were afraid of the weapons that Rena had, they started to run away. Seeing where they fled, we believed that it must be the way to go further inside. After I freed myself from the net that bound me, we finished off the spiders that were trying to escape. After that battle, I managed to raise my level several times. Combat experience really results in a much faster leveling rate. Rena then asked how she looked today. For saving me, I thank him. When I wanted to invite her to go deeper, Rena suddenly collapsed. Rena's condition looks very bad, as if she is having a high fever. Rena turns out to have been bitten by a spider on her neck. I have to find an antidote for him soon. Just as I was at a loss for what to do, in the distance came a roar. I went to see what was going on and saw the humans guiding the Spider Queen with torches. The Spider Queen seems to be the boss of this dungeon. These bastards should have brought an antidote. Besides, I didn't expect that humans actually raise monsters. I don't understand what they were thinking. Due to the Queen Spider being more active than usual, the captain of the group approached the Queen Spider. The captain has a snake tattoo on his neck. That means he has a connection with the Necron Society. He told the Queen Spider to watch her behavior because they have been feeding the Queen Spider to eat every day. He then threatened the Queen Spider if she didn't keep up with her behavior, they would burn the Queen Spider's eggs until they were crunchy. So that bastard is the captain. The person who the innkeeper and the person I interrogated before were referring to. Seeing her face, I clenched my fists in anger. A novice city guard asked his senior why they dragged the prisoners all the way here when they could have killed them in the city. His senior, who heard the question, told the newbie to be quiet, and he just had to follow the leader's orders. Seeing that the rookie was slightly separated from the group, I pulled him and made him hostage. The rookie, who was trembling with fear, screamed and asked the captain to help him. The captain of the guard, who saw this, asked who I was and what I wanted. I gave him two options. I asked him to give me an antidote, because if he does it without any trouble, I will make him not suffer when I kill the captain and spare his subordinates. Hearing my request, the guard captain burst out laughing. He said he had seen a strange drug addict, but this was the first time he had seen a drug addict this crazy. He then did I know who he was. I told him that a girl entered Ublum to buy an armor and came out a corpse. I'm wearing that armor right now. Realizing that I had come for revenge, he asked me if I was stupid. He said how could he remember all the bitches who had been his victim. Hearing his words, I lunged at him to rip his head off. As I lunged at him, the captain of the guard threw a bottle and smashed it against my helmet. My helmet is now soaked with the contents of the bottle. He then asked me if I liked eggs, because he had just given me the yolks. The Spider Queen they drove attacked me from behind. I tried to block her attack with my sword, but failed, and the Spider Queen stabbed me in the chest with her leg. The captain of the guard explained that my body now secretes new from the spider's egg. In other words, I was an intruder who had stolen the Queen Spider's egg. Isn't it strange people say that this Spider Queen is a chimera that was abandoned by the witches who created it? A mother's bond is an amazing thing. Thinking that I had died at the hands of the Queen Spider, the head guard turned his back to leave as he thought the Queen Spider had already gotten her food for the day. Suddenly, there was an explosion behind the head of the guard who was trying to leave. The Spider Queen was now howling in pain as it was enveloped in flames. The head guard was surprised to see me standing in the middle of the burning coals. What shocked him even more was discovering that I wasn't even a human. I told you that I would make her death painful. Using the flamethrower the blacksmith man gave me, I incinerated everyone present. The guards that were here, as well as the spiders that were trying to protect their queen. I burned them all indiscriminately. The guards who were enveloped by the flames could only scream in agony for help. The head guard who was in the middle of the fire begged me for mercy and said that he would do anything. Mercilessly, I told him to die and breathe more fire into his body. I will kill all the bastards who raped and killed Rubia, crisp so that no one will recognize them. None of them will I spare. In the midst of all that began to feel strange. My whole body melted. It seems that the powder that the blacksmith man gave me was not enough to protect me. My head dropped because my neck bones were melting. My consciousness was slowly fading. Amidst my fading consciousness, a text appeared which said that the assimilation rate had decreased from 92.49% to 90.14%. I finally regained my senses. I died even though I used flame retardant spray on me. I didn't even feel the heat. Sensing me who woke up earlier, Reina asked what happened. I replied that we should immediately go to Yublam. I did everything that happened like in my previous life. Just like what happened before, Reina was currently berating the general store owner who refused to sell anything. Then, after leaving the shop, I caught the town blacksmith and asked him to go to his shop to talk because it's not safe here. He explained again what he had explained in his previous life. When he gave me the flame retardant powder, I threw it at him. The blacksmith man didn't understand what was going on. I aimed the flamethrower at him who was covered in flame retardant powder and said he shouldn't feel the heat. I threatened him that I would try this flamethrower on him. The blacksmith man panicked and asked me to stop. This powder can only keep me from feeling the heat from that fire. It might come in handy if I wore it once or twice, but if I continued using it, my armor would melt before I could even notice. I grabbed his shirt and lifted him up. I asked him why he wanted to kill us along with the guards. He also replied that I was definitely not a human. Hearing his answer, I threw him. I again asked how he could know about me. He said that he had been a blacksmith for 50 years. He could notice that something that wasn't human was using his artificial armor. He wasn't sure what evil creature was under this armor, but he asked to think of my death as doing a good deed. Reina, who heard the blacksmith's words, was angry. He suggested that we should kill him. I let this go because there's no point in killing someone who's already on the verge of death. I told the blacksmith man that he didn't need to worry about the guards anymore, because I would kill them, even if he didn't ask me to. As I was trying to leave, I saw a sword that caught my eye. I also took the sword and examined the sword. This sword looks pretty good. Seeing that I took his treasured sword, he tried to stop me, and said that the sword took years to make. I pointed the sword at his neck, and said that this was payment for trying to kill us. After snatching his sword, we left the blacksmith's shop. We finally arrived again at the Spider Cave ruins. Reina, who brought the watt thrower, looked cheerful. From behind Reina, who was cheerful, I hit her neck so she fainted. Even though Reina didn't know, I didn't want to harm her anymore after she died so many times because of me. I asked him to rest for a bit as I will be back soon. As soon as I entered the labyrinth, I immediately finished off the spiders using the Grasmere flamethrower. I burned all the spiders and their eggs I could find. Grasmere's firepower is truly terrifying. I need to use it carefully. If I use it carefully, I can get rid of them all at once. Amidst all that, the head guard appeared and asked what I was doing. He looked a little panicked when he realized that I was killing the spiders they kept. The head guard then tried to calm the situation down and said that I seemed to be lost. He introduced himself as a guard from a nearby town and offered to have his men escort me out of here. He then asked if he liked eggs. Knowing what he was trying to do, I slashed his chest. He was shocked because I realized what he was trying to do. With a face full of annoyance, he asked who I was. He won't understand, but I made an appointment with him. Not understanding what I was talking about, he asked me what I meant. I replied that I had promised him a painful death. The head guard thought I must be crazy. The chief guard then ordered his men to attack me. I also used my flamethrower and burned all the guards who tried to attack. I can't use this for too long, because if I use it too long, then I will melt again like last time. I have to keep my distance and burn them all. I won't let anyone off the hook. The chief guard who was hiding behind a rock attacked me from behind and destroyed my flamethrower with his sword. Seeing my useless weapon, he laughed. He said he didn't know where I could get the gun, but it's an old scrap metal now. He then explained that it was a mistake to burn all the spider eggs because I made the spiders very angry. A moment later, the queen spider slowly arrived at this location. After taking the last surviving spider's egg, The head guard threatens the newly arrived spider queen that she must obey the head guard if she doesn't want to lose her last little baby. He then ordered the queen spider to kill me. The spider queen attacked me with her hands. I tried to parry it using my sword. However, the queen spider's attack was too strong and sent me flying. The strength of the spider queen is not playing games. She is really annoyed. If it wasn't for that fire, I don't know what I would have done. Seeing me struggling against the spider queen, the chief guard laughed scornfully. He was sure that he would not be able to beat him with just a sword. Because I fell. Seeing Grasmir's shattered fire bottle made me panic. Because I was off guard, the queen spider attacked me with its legs to finish me off. I'm not sure what I'm doing will work, but it's worth a try. The spider queen's attack finally landed. Thinking that I was finished off, the head guard laughed and said that I would just die as food for the spiders. But his suspicions were wrong. The legs used by the queen spider were cut and burned. Queen Spider was also moaning in pain. The chief guard who witnessed the incident was shocked. He didn't understand what was going on. With my sword engulfed in Grasmir's flames, I then said to the head guard that I would make sure that he would die a miserable death. The Spider Queen, who felt that she was in danger, now made repeated attacks using her legs. I slashed at the leg of the queen spider that was coming towards me and cut them all. Taking advantage of the Spider Queen's weakening, I jumped for the final attack. Using the momentum of my jump, I executed a vertical slash of the sword and slashed through the Spider Queen's body. Seeing me defeating the Spider Queen, the chief guard was shocked. It didn't even cross his mind that I could defeat the Spider Queen. He didn't expect that I wasn't human myself. Thinking that I was letting my guard down, having just fought with the Spider Queen, the head guard tried to sneak up on me from behind. But instead it was his hand that was cut off. He screamed and winced in pain because his hand was cut off. He didn't need to stop the bleeding thanks to the flames enveloping my blade. It would be a shame if he died too soon from blood loss. If that happens, then I won't be able to fulfill my promise. The head guard thought this was all crazy. He then crawled looking for his men. He shouted, ordering his men to kill me quickly. The call was in vain because I killed all of his men. He also now orders the spiders to kill me right now. That command was also useless because I had already killed all the spiders that were here. The chief guard, who was still crawling on the ground, was starting to feel hopeless. As he was still crawling on the ground, he was hit by Grasmir's sparks that were on the ground. Frantically, he tried to extinguish the fire that spread his clothes. All his efforts were in vain because Grasmir's fire is a fire that will not be extinguished. He who was panicking to put out the fire slowly backed away from me. I tried to warn him, but he just ignored me and told me not to come any closer. The chief guard, who paid no attention to his surroundings, finally fell down the cliff behind him and fell to his death. That's a really stupid way to die. Everything is now over. Even if I wanted to keep this sword, it was too dangerous for me to carry it with me. I also threw the sword covered in Grasmir's fire to the cliff. When I thought about returning to where Rena was, the Spider Queen that I had defeated started to rise again. I didn't expect that he still had the strength to fight. Since I just threw away my sword, I have nothing to fight back with. I don't know what to do. The Queen Spider then tried to reach me. I thought that everything was over. However, the Queen Spider only wanted to take the eggs that were near my feet. He hugged the egg with affection. Thinking that her egg was safe, the Queen Spider finally collapsed again. The Spider Queen finally died. A moment later, a message window appeared saying that I had defeated the web slinger. The message rewarded me with a Speed LV1 skill that makes me 3 times faster for 5 minutes, which can be used 3 times a day.